Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm recording this on October 7th. It's the 7th, yeah, October 7th. I did a recording last night with John Hogue. I'll be publishing that today, so please watch that. We talk about um, we talked about oil, and we also talked about the Middle East and some of the things that could arise in the next few weeks. So please watch that video. This video is going to be about markets. I'm going to see what transpires in the news with the Middle East. I've been watching what's going on with the equity market and what's going on in the oil market. I haven't taken a look at what's going on in the currency market. So we'll go over that and give you my perspective, where some of the resistance points are, where some of the support levels are, so you get an idea of what to worry about, what not to worry about. So before we go and do the videos here, please make sure you subscribe to all my videos, all my channels, I should say, all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. I also have a Patreon that you can be a subscriber to help support my work. You can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. I also have the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description of this video. You can help support my work by sharing the links, and you can help support my work by asking your social network to follow me. I would greatly appreciate that. I need to create more followers so I can reach a larger audience. Why? So I can explain what's going on in finance, I can explain what's going on in the international affairs, and so I can explain what's going on with how to improve your health. So please make sure that you subscribe and ask your social media to subscribe. It's through the donations that allow me to create these videos for free. I have thousands of videos for free, all right? So you can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee, or you can be a paid member to Patreon and get the supplements to help support your health. If you follow what I've been saying, you can improve cardiovascular health, you can improve neural health, you can slow down the aging process, you can build up energy, you can boost up your immune system, you can improve your endocrine system. So just follow what I'm saying. All right. I do what I'm recommending you to do. All right. So it's obviously working. All right. So please go to my store and get the supplements. Now you can purchase the supplements individually, or you can get these anti-aging boxes. So the last several videos, I've been talking about anti-aging boxes to try to inform the public. I have curated these boxes so it's easy for you to get started on your health journey. All right. And depending on the box, depends on what's in it and what the price points are and all this stuff. So I'm going to talk about the first anti-aging box that I have, and that is the anti-aging beginners box. You get structural nano silver liquid. You just take a teaspoon of this a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle with it 20 seconds or so, and swallow. What that does is it neutralizes pathogens and maintains a mucosal barrier. That's really important to stay healthy and boost up your immune system. C60 is a very strong antioxidant. You can soak up free radicals with this. C60 is a molecule. It's a molecule that has 60 carbons, and it just soaks up those free radicals, neutralizes them, so it doesn't cause cellular damage. Those free radicals, if they're left alone, what happens is free radicals will damage the cell, and you're going to actually age faster. People that get older actually oxidize faster. You have more free radicals, so you want to soak those up. C60 is very potent. Take a teaspoon of it a day. It'll soak up those free radicals. And in addition, by soaking up those free radicals and improving the health of the cell and the tissue, it's also improving the mitochondrial health of the cell. So you'll have more ATP and you'll have more energy. That's really important for your immune system and other cellular processes. So this is why C60 is in the anti-aging boxes. So you can get it in extra virgin olive oil, MCT coconut oil, or avocado oil. And The last supplement that's in the beginner's box, the anti-aging beginner's box, is D3. D3 is very important to soak up. Let me rephrase that. D3 is very important to be able to absorb calcium. All right. You need calcium for proper bone density, bone health. D3 also is a gene expression cofactor. That means that with D3, it helps the cell process, transcribe genes so your cells work better. All right. If your cell needs to go into apoptosis, D3 helps to have that cell go into apoptosis. So if you have a cell that needs to die, you need D3 to help for it to die off. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the anti-aging beginner's box. All right, with that said, let's go to Al Jazeera and see what's going on here lately in the
establishment of the state of Israel. It was the biggest security breach under a prime minister who'd always sold himself as the only man to keep Israelis safe. Now, it's interesting because even today, when he has gone up in the polls again, particularly when it comes to the war on Hezbollah and the victory, the intelligence victory that Israel has achieved over that group. There's a lot of reminders still in op-eds in the media, on social media, of Israelis saying, let's not forget that Netanyahu never apologized for October the 7th. He was responsible at the end of the day. He never took responsibility. And many still blame him. They still blame him for not bringing home the captives, around 100 captives, half of those believed to be dead, and the others in dire situation. Interestingly, Netanyahu convened a meeting yesterday discussing the captives because they hadn't been discussed in weeks, because they have been focused on the war with Hezbollah, on striking Iran, rather than actually dealing with, really, you could argue, the root cause, which is any potential ceasefire in Gaza and a political solution. But
I know this sounds pretty cold, right? But executing the war is more important in the long run for everybody in the world, including the people in that region, than actually rescuing the hostages. That's a fact. All right. Hamas took the hostages to slow down the war effort and to build up some sort of international consensus or pressure to somehow push a two-state solution, or to slow down the actual military operations of the IDF. They did it on purpose, all right? And the international community fell for it. Most of these people are probably dead, all right? Now, they should try to get them back, but that should not be the main mission anymore. The main mission is to destroy Hamas, Hezbollah, and the theocratic regime in Iran, to make sure they don't have a nuclear weapon. Because if they have a nuclear weapon, it's going to get really bad. And the United States has fucked this whole region up, going all the way back to when CIA started doing operations in the Middle East. Don't worry about the hostages. Just get the job done.
Conceivably, to do that is a course of action that Israel will not take, and that is basically occupy the entire Gaza Strip and be responsible for the lives of the desolate lives for people who are living there above and beyond those who are members of Hamas. Now, Hezbollah is a completely different thing. So when you said eradicate everyone that threatens Israel, yeah, every country would love to do that, but that's mafia or mobster mentality. That's not how countries can and should be run.
Well, let's take a look now at the situation for the Israeli captives being held in Gaza. 251 Israelis and foreigners were taken captive on October the 7th by Hamas and other fighters. 117 Israelis have returned home, some released in exchange deals, others rescued by the Israeli army. There are currently 101 captives held in Gaza, 36 of whom have been declared dead. But Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that half of the captives are alive. 37 bodies of captives have been repatriated to Israel. Most are believed to have been killed by Israeli fire. and 8 people have been rescued.
Some of these are American citizens, all right? Were they that important for Biden to go in and try to save them? No. Biden was on a beach.
The eldest, Shlomo Mansu, aged 86, his family were originally from Iraq. Hamas and other Palestinian factions kidnapped Israelis and foreign nationals in an early morning attack that took Israel by complete surprise as it marked the end of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. And just a day after the 50-year anniversary of what Israelis referred to as the Black Day, when it was defeated by Egyptian and Syrian soldiers in the October 6th war. Videos like this one of Noah Argamani were shared globally, of people taken captive from their homes, military barracks, and a massive desert rave. The Israeli military rescued her and 3 others months later, but they killed 236 Palestinians in the process, mostly women and children. Her boyfriend is one of 101 captives still held in the Gaza Strip. Captives' families have tirelessly rallied every Saturday in Tel Aviv and other cities, desperately calling on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his far-right government to accept a ceasefire deal. The one and only ceasefire agreement that ensured the release of more than half of the captives in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli detention centres, some for years and many without trial, lasted only 11 days, with each side accusing the other of failing to honour the deal terms. All international attempts for an agreement through mediators, Qatar, the US and Egypt, have failed since. And with Israel's focus shifted to Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon, Israel is now engaged in war on more than one front. Hamas has always maintained that a temporary ceasefire isn't enough and wants a complete end to the war. Israel says this isn't possible until it gets rid of the Palestinian armed group. It's already assassinated Hamas's leader, Ismail Haniyeh, who was the lead negotiator. All other rescue attempts have failed so far, and several captives have been killed by Israeli fire. This worries Aviva Sigal. She was released as part of the ceasefire deal, but her nightmare isn't over as she campaigns for husband Keith's release.
The hostages there are being left to die slowly. How can I handle it? How can I? I just don't know how.
Because if you don't get the job done, there's going to be more of this happening in the future. It's called sacrifice. This is the problem with the crazy liberals. And if you really want to get, really into the details of economics in the United States, a big part of the problem that we have in the United States and in our indebtedness is because of the baby boomers. There's a self-centeredness. There needs to be people that are willing to get the job done, so it's a better future for the next generation. But what we have been doing lately, several decades, is it's like, how is this generation going to be? Let's not worry about the future generations. Let's not worry about, self-sacrifice and for a greater cause, to build the nation. This is something that I think the greatest generation had. This concept of like, you get the job done and you make a better place for future generations. You didn't see that with the baby boomers. The baby boomers has been take, my, me. Everything's take. Everything's egocentric. Now, I'm broad brushing it. Not all baby boomers are like that, but when you look at the aggregate, that's exactly what fucking happened in the United States. And you look at these crazy liberals in Israel, it's the same thing. It's take. It's all about them and their loved one, okay? But the thing is there's a bigger thing going on here. And there needs to, how many of these people would prefer to have them be brought home and then do a ceasefire, and then maybe something worse comes down the road in 10 years. Because that's exactly what the history is showing. So what they do is they cause problems for military operations because they keep on doing the protests and they keep on, trying to, push military agendas, military strategies to be focused on just the hostages. But you can't have that. Now, in a perfect world, you can do both. But if you can't do both, saving the hostages is not a priority anymore. Winning the war is a priority because there's going to be more hostages and more destruction later down the road if this job isn't done. Now that's cold if someone has a family member that's a hostage, but that's a reality. That's the reality of the situation.
מדינה פלסטינית לא יכולה לקום, כי אין דבר כזה עם פלסטיני.
אנחנו לא נאפשר אפילו הצהרה על מדינה פלסטינית.
All right, so let me try this.
מדינה כזאת.
This is the right wing.
But it's not only dehumanizing language against the Palestinians that's been used. Propaganda and disinformation have also backed up.
So they were playing the right wing. They were playing the right wing when I was intervening in that. But they were playing the right wing group in Israel, and they're very negative towards the Palestinians. Is that right? No, it's not right. But they got to get the job done. You will not have peace in that region if Hamas, Hezbollah, and the theocratic regime in Iran isn't eliminated. It has to get done. Then you can pick up the pieces and try to put things back together. But until that, until you kill these Islamic terrorists, you are not going to have peace in that region. You think there's really true peace between Sunnis and the Shias? You think there's really true peace between Hezbollah and the Christians within Lebanon? I mean, wake up. Wake up. Look at what's happening with Islamic terrorism in Europe. It's time to get the job done.
But despite a relentless campaign of attacks on medical facilities and health workers, the Israeli government failed to provide proof to back up animations it used as pretext for the attacks.
It's a baby battle in a baby.
Inside hospitals, its spokesman lied about days of the week as names of Hamas fighters.
Where every terrorist writes his name.
Aid groups say anyone who tries to get aid to millions of Palestinians living in famine-like conditions is a target. And when Israeli forces shoot or bomb clearly marked humanitarian aid vehicles and staff, the government blames Palestinian fighters, only to later admit responsibility. If there is a public outcry, particularly with the killing of foreign aid workers, Israeli leaders call it, quote, a mistake. Despite the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, or UNRWA, fulfilling the Israeli government's legal requirements, it's been a regular target. Analysts say Israel has been trying to shut down UNRWA for decades because its existence legitimizes Palestinian claims to lands they say were stolen by Israel. This crater is in Al-Mawasi, where at least 400 families were forcibly displaced and their tents were wiped out by Israeli bombs. That's after they were urged to go to a safe zone, but nowhere is safe in Gaza.
There is a place in Gaza called the Mawasi. The Mawasi is the place where they all can have a shelters. Together with international organizations, we created shelters.
There's been a litany of what legal experts call war crimes, and almost every act follows a torrent of propaganda. A sinister tactic, according to Marco and Jones, who specializes in disinformation.
A consensus can be created really quickly, and that's what's happened. You had the 40 beheaded babies out there immediately, right? Exploiting an emotional moment in time with this atrocity propaganda makes people more susceptible to it. If you don't want to believe the reality that Palestinians are being slaughtered, and that it's a genocide, you need something for your morality to rest on. That's why you need a lie. And if they believe that they're fighting an enemy that beheads babies, they'll feel comfortable doing that. It also gives the opportunity for Western leaders a way to legitimize to their populations why they should support an American ally like Israel.
I come before you not only as the United States Secretary of State, but also as a Jew.
You need not be a Jew to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist.
Ideological, political, and financial backing has fueled a war of disinformation, dehumanization, and victim blaming. In Iran, it's still being waged against Palestinian civilians. Shamba Javed, Al Jazeera.
The past year of unrelenting Israeli bombardment has destroyed 75% of Gaza's infrastructure, leaving the Strip unrecognizable. The UN says such widespread devastation has not been seen since the Second World War. Our correspondent Hani Mahmoud reports from Gaza.
12 months of bombardment, heartbreak, and pain. The scars of war are etched into every street. And what Palestinians once knew and held dear have turned into ever distant memories.
This is my home, or what remains of it. Only a small part of my home. I can't reach it. I wish I can go in and take some of my belongings, but my dream was destroyed.
Israel's airstrikes, artillery shelling, and demolitions have turned much of Gaza into a vast wasteland of rubble. Yet, it is still a claustrophobic.
Every time I look at the destruction, I feel depressed. You feel as though you're in a dream. You want to wake up from it and return, but we can't bring back anything. Until when will we remain like this? Until when will we continue to be under siege and under stress? Our days are all just war. We don't feel any comfort or safety.
More than 75% of buildings here have been destroyed. Families have repeatedly made the agonizing decision to leave. And as they flee, the destruction follows them. Places of healing and sanctuary turn into places where Palestinians mourn. Homes where parents once tucked children into their bed, now in ruins with bodies beneath them.
It's like we're in a nightmare. I pray to God that I wake up. The children were asleep. They are innocent and they were asleep. They've been torn into pieces.
You don't have to look far to understand what Gaza is going through. And every now and then, a reminder of what once was.
We were raised here. We lived with these children. We used to sit outside during the summer and play with them. I didn't imagine that there would be all this destruction. Both the old and the young were killed. The local registry deleted their names, and now they're all gone.
Still, a push of some semblance of normality as Palestinians try to hold on to their resilience. But 12 months on, everything is missing in Gaza, even the idea of a future. Hani Mahmoud, Al Jazeera, Gaza, Palestine.
And let's now speak to another of our correspondents in Gaza, Hind al-Khudari, who's in Deir al-Balah, in the center of the Strip. Hind, Israeli warplanes have again bombed Gaza on this October the 7th. Tell us about the situation on the ground right now and how people are reflecting on this anniversary.
Well, definitely the people are affected by this anniversary because it's still going. There are continuous Israeli airstrikes and there's also continuous evacuation orders. Let's start with the latest, where the Israeli forces just striked Al-Jabalia refugee camp. They targeted a group of Palestinians. At least 8 Palestinians were killed. Among them is the brother of our cameraman, Ibrahim Nosal. Ibrahim's family have been separated. Some of them stayed in the north. He evacuated to the south with other family members. They survived an Israeli attack on Jabalia in November 2023, and now his brother was killed in an airstrike. And this is one of the stories of Palestinian families that have been enduring 365 days of the war. Now, not only that, there has been also a ground invasion in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, especially Jabalia and Beit Lahia. But there has been also new evacuation orders in Khan Yunis, and those evacuation orders are asking people to go to the humanitarian zone. And we all know the humanitarian zone that Israel claims as a safe humanitarian zone has been targeted over and over again. During this year, Palestinians have been always telling us that this is not only a nightmare they have been living, but they have been also telling us that there is no place safe across the Gaza Strip. Right now in Al-Aqsa Hospital, we received the family that evacuated from the northern parts of Gaza Strip. They came walking from the Gaza city, crossing the checkpoint and ending up here in Al-Aqsa Hospital. They're exhausted, they're drained. We saw them walking all that way from the early hours of the morning, but it's very obvious the children were malnourished, they're very thin and weak, and the mother has been crying when we received her here at Al-Aqsa Hospital. This war has been affecting Palestinians on all aspects of lives. People who didn't lose their beloved ones lost their houses, or they died after they did not receive the medical treatment. It has been affecting everyone, and today is a very sad day for everyone across the Gaza Strip.
Hind Al-Khudri, thank you so much, Hind, for your reporting. That's our correspondent on the ground there in Gaza. Well, our reporters in Gaza, like Hind, have been working around the clock covering the latest lines. The grueling, painstaking work is vital to keep the world aware of Israel's actions in Gaza. But the coverage doesn't come without personal cost. Here's our correspondent, Tariq Abwasif.
This war has massively changed my life, forcing me to be a refugee in my homeland. I have come across plenty of security and humanitarian challenges since day one of the Israeli war in Gaza. This is the impact side of the strike. We're right now at the backyard of Al-Aqsa Hospital. As you can see, this place has turned upside down after an Israeli airstrike. I have been internally displaced along with my family members over 5 times so far, ending up to be trapped here in Deir al-Balah. It's not quite an easy job at all to be a journalist in Gaza, because I'm talking to you right now and I'm thinking about my family members. It's quite hard to feel that you're unable to afford them with full sense of safety, because you believe that all safe humanitarian zones designated by the Israeli occupation forces have been widely targeted, and people were killed in these areas without any warning. It's really a very devastating war that let us witness one of the worst genocides ever committed in modern history.
In the middle of the Israeli bombardment, displacement, and devastation, Palestinian video journalist Bisan Alda.
Lots of displacement, lots of destruction, lots of collateral damage. But you know, the thing is, it's because the job wasn't done and destroyed Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. And this is why I keep on saying, get the job done or it's going to get worse. And as time goes on, America is going to get sucked in more and more and more. You think Iraq and Afghanistan was a free for all, that we weren't able to get the job done? Well, just imagine a nuclear Iran. Stupid. It's time to get it done. You know, you think that Europe would be better off if we played patty cake with Hitler instead of blowing up Germany? Yeah, let's go play patty cake. All right. I want to go to Bloomberg and hear a little bit of the business.
City's head of U.S. equity trading strategy. Now coming up, a look at big pharma. Activist investor Starboard seeking a turnaround at Pfizer. We're going to talk about what's up with that next. It's Bloomberg.
Okay, so you have the hurricane that's coming in to Tampa, all right, this Milton. All right, so that may cause a little bit of a problem with oil, because you have the oil rigs in the region. But there's going to be this potentially could be, it's already category 4. This could be potentially terrible for Tampa. So they already hit, I mean, almost like a direct hit to Tampa. That looks like, around Thursday at about 2 a.m. So that's going to be a problem for Florida. Now, equity trading the equities are trading at about S&P 500 is trading at 5,733 right now, with a VIX of about 20, almost 21. So there's a little bit of risk with equities, but we did hit intraday trading yesterday at 5,800. All right, so I still have a target for S&P 500 by year end. It's going to be 5,800, but now the probability of going to 6,000 is a little bit higher. So we're at 5,800. We may be fluctuating below or around that point for the next couple weeks or so as we move towards the election. But I think that it'll pop, and there's a high probability of it being at 6,000 now for year end. There was good job report. The job data is showing that the unemployment rate in the United States is 4.1 now. Is that real or not? That's another story. Some people say it's not a real number, and it's just to try to help Harris out. Who knows? But that means that a rate cut, especially a 50-point basis rate cut, is probably off the table. All right, so let's go to Bloomberg here. If they are not going into commercial, they're still in commercial. Okay, since they're still in the commercial, oil is trading up. So there's two types of oil markets in general. All right, there are a lot of different energy markets, but in general, for oil, there's a Brent and there is the WTI for the futures market. WTI is US, West Texas Intermediary. All right, and then Brent is the international. Brent trades a little bit higher than WTI. It's been trading at around $77, $78 a barrel, while WTI, at least last night, it was trading almost as much as $76 a barrel, and now it's trading at, I think, around $74 a barrel, 75, 60. So that's because of the risk that's in the Middle East. Now, I have a price point for oil, WTI, at about 80, and Brent at about 85, maybe 86. Now, and we'll go into more detail on later, but I want to go to Bloomberg. But there's different scenarios where price will move accordingly to those different scenarios in the Middle East, and I'll go over those scenarios in the next segment here. But I want to hear about some of the news here.
First up, Barclays downgrading Netflix to a sell. The analyst says that the company's premium valuation too optimistic, also sees revenue growth slowing from here. Netflix, of course, reports earnings next week. Next up, Jefferies upgraded Coty to a buy. The firm is confident in the beauty company's ability to expand its prestige portfolio, and as the company has less exposure to China and a very attractive valuation, shares currently up about 5% or so. And finally, we have JP Morgan upgrading Ally Financial to a buy following the recent sell-off. The analyst says that investors should be taking profits on consumer finance stocks, and says that Ally reflects the opportunity created amid rapid swings in sentiment now.
All right, now another stock that we're watching, we've been talking about today, is Pfizer. Activist investor Starboard Value is said to have taken a nearly $1 billion stake, a $1 billion stake in the drug maker. Let's discuss, I guess, the potential for a turnaround for Pfizer with Bloomberg's Madison Muller, because Madison, this was, I think, a $300 billion stock at one point, and now it's trading at about half that.
Yeah, and this stake isn't huge, but what we know is that Pfizer is used to being a pharma darling. I mean, during the pandemic, they were really top of their game. We're all used to talking about them, knowing them. Their revenue doubled during the pandemic to 100 billion. And so what we know is that investors are not happy with Pfizer's performance post-pandemic. They've struggled to develop an obesity pill. They've struggled to really find their next big hit. And so they're hoping for a turnaround.
Part of the story that amuses me a lot is that the activists here, Starboard, reached out to former executives, Ian Reed, Frank D'Amelio, two executives known for their buying spree. What is it exactly does he want here, Jeff Smith over at Starboard? Is it more acquisitions? Do we know?
We don't know really yet, but one of the things that we have been hearing is that investors are not happy with Pfizer's M&A strategy in particular. Albert Bourla, who's been Pfizer's CEO for the last few years, a name that many people know, has done a lot of deals, post-pandemic, but so far those deals have not really yielded the results as quickly enough as investors were hoping for.
This is a great full screen list, by the way, because these are deals that were done under Bourla, right?
Exactly.
The predecessors that Shanali says were also acquisitive. This is the problem. They're not yielding any blockbuster drugs.
Right. And I mean, we know the Seagen acquisition, huge acquisition. We do expect that will yield some blockbusters, but not for another few years. It's not really happening as quickly enough as investors had hoped to replace the dwindling revenue from the COVID vaccine and treatment that the demand is just not there for anymore.
Well, shareholders clearly welcoming the news today. Pfizer shares currently up 3.6% in trading, but talk to us a little bit more about the pipeline. You mentioned, of course, their struggles to create a viable obesity drug, try to tap into that craze, but what exactly are they cooking up right now, especially after all those recent acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, Pfizer has really set its sights on cancer. That is the big thing. I mean, they came out with this big Super Bowl ad, talking all about cancer. They've really tried to rebrand themselves as a cancer company after the pandemic. They've also tried to develop an obesity pill.
I wonder why.
So many times on the show, obesity is the next big thing. Pfizer has really struggled with that so far. They do have an obesity pill in development. It's a once daily pill, but analysts are not super hopeful that that's going to be the next big thing, and that's going to be able to compete with all of the other obesity drugs that are in development. They have a migraine drug that they got through the acquisition of Biohaven, but again, that's not a huge blockbuster yet. So really just, I think, that's the big question is what else in the pipeline is going to get people excited?
And even on M&A, that Seagen deal is one of the top 5 completed deals, but you kind of have to go further back beyond Bourla to find anything close to that size. Madison, we thank you so much for your reporting, keeping an eye on all things Pfizer and pharma. Claiming debt deals from the world of private credit. We're going to discuss what's going on in our Wall Street beat. This is Bloomberg.
Seems like everybody over at Bloomberg wants to play some riff from Depeche Mode. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-aging advance box. The anti-aging advance box has the Max 35. It has the D3, C60 with your choice of avocado oil, MCT coconut oil, or extra virgin olive oil. It's a very strong antioxidant. Your choice of deodorant. The deodorant's for males and females. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It's a dual purpose product. It acts as a deodorant and it helps to detoxify your body. You can get it in citrus or peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. Toothpaste, which is made from structural nanosilver. Helps to neutralize pathogens, whiten your teeth, freshen your breath. Vitamin C to help to boost your immune system. And a great probiotic that's in a VeggieCap form to help maintain your gut biome and your metabolism and better communication between your gut and your liver and your gut and your brain. A lot of people don't realize that gut health can manifest in a lot of different ways. You can have poor metabolism. If you have bad gut health may also cause depression or mood swings. In addition, bad gut health can manifest with skin problems. So please make sure that you take a good probiotic and keep your gut health in its prime. So please go to my store, get the anti-aging advanced box. Now, if you don't want to buy the anti-aging an advanced box and you just want to get the vitamin C and the probiotic, you can purchase them individually, no problem. All right. It's just that I try to curate these boxes so people, based on different price points, can start on this health journey. You can slow down the aging process. You can have more energy. You can have more vitality. You can have more longevity. You can boost up your immune system. You can improve your endocrine system. And by doing this on a regular basis, you're going to actually see huge improvements in your health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-aging advanced box.
Is pure fees for the banks.
Right.
What's the dynamic under the surface?
I want to go.
Look,
I want to go to this guy at Al Jazeera because I can't stand him.
Force. So even when he preaches, for example, peace for the Arab world, he does so from only an advantage point of Israeli military supremacy. In his book, this monstrosity of 700 pages, some 200-300 pages were devoted to his ideas about the importance of force, of power in international relations. He's not exactly a believer in diplomacy. He's quite a hyper-realist. He was born into an Israeli culture that also believes so. So in as much as he is shaping Israeli policy today and Israeli-American policy, he has been shaped by them. So you have this American accented, slick leader of Israel that speaks for Israel. But behind that, there's a very vicious politician, very seasoned as well. And probably there is no better liar in modern Middle Eastern international relations than Netanyahu. He's quite a pathological salesman.
Now, how do you reflect, Marwan, on this past year? It's 12 months since October the 7th and what ensued. How has it changed the region?
There's no doubt that it has shattered old illusions in Israel as well as in the Middle East. It has torpedoed whatever was being cooked up over the past decade or so in the Middle East. And it's also, at the same time, it opened the way to hell in the sense of an unraveling genocide that does not stop against the people in Gaza and somewhat against other people in Palestine and perhaps tomorrow against the people in Lebanon, as we see just from the news today, as Israel asked for the expulsion of the inhabitants of 25 villages just in one region around Tyre. So clearly, this has opened the gates of hell, if you will, in as much as they torpedoed and undermined an entire enterprise, political and strategic enterprise that had to do with Israel leading under American auspices a new regional axis, if you will, against Iran and its allies. But in Palestine per se, the idea of that Palestine can be ignored, that the world and the Middle East can turn its back on Palestine, that Palestine can be just basically remain occupied in perpetuity, that is no more. Despite the unprecedented destruction, despite the unprecedented pain and suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza, but the myth of ignoring the Palestinian people have at the same time been shattered.
And so what comes next in your opinion? And can world powers like the United States or European countries such as France, can there still be a wake-up call from them to try and prevent a full-blown regional conflict?
You know what the sad reality is? If the shoe was worn on the other foot and the Palestinians, were causing all this carnage, right, on the Israelis, they'd be jumping up for joy, shooting guns in the street and dancing on cars. Because that's what they've done in the past. So stop this whole moral equivalency bullshit. The reality of the situation is war is hell, and there's going to be collateral damage, and it's going to get worse if you don't get the job done. And because things weren't because the international community prevented Israel from getting the job done in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s. This is where we're at. And it's going to get a whole hell of a lot worse if Iran gets a nuclear weapon.
Being optimistic, or I'm certainly pessimistic about what's next. And I only hope that, you know, the more mature, the more sober minds might prevail in the months to come before we hit the tragedy, another tragedy of a full-fledged Middle East war.
Marwan, thank you very much for sharing your views with us. Marwan Bashara is our senior political.
He knows that the Israelis have the momentum and they're probably going to knock out Hezbollah, but it's not going to be easy. And that means there's going to be lots of destruction in Beirut. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-aging deluxe box. In the anti-aging deluxe box, you get everything in the advanced box plus one other item. You get the Max 35, the C60, your choice of extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or MCT coconut oil. D3, the deodorant, your choice of peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, or citrus. Toothpaste, the structural enamel silver toothpaste, which is the best toothpaste that you can buy. Vitamin C to help boost up your immune system. The probiotic to help with your gut health. And resveratrol. Resveratrol gets rid of senescent cells. That means that you're getting rid of cells that stop dividing and just accumulate garbage, right, and toxins. So you're getting rid of those cells. And that will help to stimulate areas and tissues that can repopulate, that have adult stem cells or some sort of basal layer that can repopulate, all right? So resveratrol is something I've been taking for decades, all right? It is synergistic with C60 because they're both antioxidants and they both help with improving mitochondrial health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-aging deluxe box. Now, I have a super deluxe box, an anti-aging super deluxe box. Now, you get everything that's in the deluxe box, but you get 4 other items. You get vitamin B complex. This is really important for cellular metabolism and to boost up that energy for the mitochondria, because the first B1 through 5 vitamins, the first 5 B vitamins helps with the electron transport chain. That is a process within your mitochondria that help to produce ATP. You need that for, you know, energy, to build muscle, to help good cellular processes, to improve your immune system, for endocrine system, for your brain. So it's really important. B complex is extremely important to take as you get older. This is why it's in the anti-aging super deluxe box. Now, I also have the omega-3, which helps to improve your cardiovascular health, all right? It brings down LDL and raises HDL levels. That means you're controlling your cholesterol. In addition, omega-3 helps to prevent the red blood cells from sticking too much. That means that you can mitigate clotting issues. So that's why it's in the anti-aging box, to help with the lipid profile and to reduce clotting issues. Omega-3. Not omega-3, ashwagandha. I'm very tired. Ashwagandha root is a supplement that will bring down your cortisol levels and also bring down your glucose levels. All right, that's good because in the United States, most people are overstressed, so they have too much cortisol and they eat too many carbohydrates and sugary foods, all right? So you want to control that. So you can control this by taking ashwagandha. In addition, by controlling those glucose levels and controlling the cortisol levels, you're bringing down inflammation. So you're improving your cardiovascular fitness. And this is synergistic with omega-3, all right? So in addition, it's also synergistic with turmeric. And with turmeric, It's an antioxidant and it brings down inflammation. So both of these are helping your immune system, but they also help with your cardiovascular system. So that's in the Super Deluxe box, the anti-aging Super Deluxe box. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the products. These really work. You take this every day, and you're going to notice huge differences in your health. Your endocrine system is going to be better. Your immune system is going to be better. And you're going to start seeing that you're aging slower because you're soaking up those free radicals. And when you do that, you're going to literally look better over time because there's a compound effect. You look at someone that doesn't take antioxidants and doesn't control their inflammation and doesn't neutralize pathogens, they're always sick and they age faster. So please go to my store and get the anti-aging boxes that I have. The beginner's box, the advanced box, the deluxe box, or the super deluxe box. But it works. Get it, it works. And improve your health. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, what's going on with Bloomberg?
With the hurricane just last week, so we'll keep an eye on that. But we are at the Commonwealth National Conference here, financial advisors. We're going to talk to a lot of smart people here that are at the conference managing money on behalf of others.
Why would you want to talk to a dumbass?
The markets, kind of what they're looking out for here is, I think, about 2025. So we got a lot of great guests coming up, and we're also going to stay on top of the news. Mark Champion, Bloomberg opinion columnist, he's going to give us the latest on the Middle East, and that'll be interesting as well. But right now, let's kick things off back in New York.
Hi, Paul and Alex. We are being brought to you by IBKR, our financial advisors, switch to interactive brokers for lowest costs, global turnkey solutions, no ticket charges, no conflicts of your interest at ibkr.com/RIA. Well, traders at pullback bets on another jumbo rate cut from the Federal Reserve. And the November meeting, this comes after Friday's jobs report. Yeah, that has stocks lower. Bond yields pushing higher right now. The S&P 500 20 points lower. That's down 0.3%, 57.31 on the index. After Friday's record close, Dow Jones Industrial Average 85 points lower right now, and that is down 0.2%. The Nasdaq 108 points lower. That is down 0.5%.
All right, so S&P 500, 5,730.
Backdrop for stocks.
So it dropped a little bit. It dropped a little bit, the S&P 500, but it's still above the 5,700 mark. So this thing's gonna go past 5,800, assuming that the world doesn't go nuclear.
Well, right now, the S&P 500, only 2 of the 11 major industry groups are higher than the ones to energy and healthcare, leading the way as oil prices. They inch higher right now as crude oil is higher because of those tensions in the Mideast. Investors also looking ahead to the inflation print that's out on Thursday, the release of the consumer price index. And among the individual shares on the move, Pfizer climbing. We reported that activist investor Starboard Value had taken a stake of about $1 billion in the firm. Shares of Pfizer right now, they were up 4.3%. As for yields, the 2-year yield right now is right around 4%.
Okay, what I want to do is I want to talk about an item that I discussed with John Hogue yesterday about oil markets. Now, we didn't go into full detail because that wasn't the purpose of the video that we recorded last night. You can see that I'm uploading that today. The oil market has 2 different main markets: international and what the United States produces. United States does export, but United States also uses its energy. United States also imports. All right, so it's a little bit complex, right? Most countries will buy on the Brent crude market. Now, Brent crude will trade usually higher than WTI. Brent crude is really the international crude market, and then the WTI is the US crude market. Now, usually it's around $5 differential. Not always, but just rule of thumb, about $5 difference, $4 or $5 difference. All right. So, so what you have here is like the United States is trading at around $75 a barrel right now. It was trading at 70 and lower before the major escalation in the Middle East with the pager bombings, and Iran decided to launch again missiles to Tel Aviv and all this that did hit. Question is how many of them hit. I think mainstream media is hiding some of the real impact. So it's trading now. It's about $75, $76 a barrel. All right. So Brent is, is trading up higher now, $78, $79 a barrel. So what can happen, there are different scenarios here. If Israel hits the oil fields, or the United States hits the oil fields in Iran, then what's going to happen is there's going to be probably a $10 increase because of the just market behavior of the traders. The reality of the situation is that if you knock out the capacity of Iran to produce oil, Saudi Arabia has enough, and the United States has enough additional capacity to make up the difference. So it's really a short-term play, not a long-term. So you may see, maybe a $10 increase because of just behavior and just knee-jerk reaction. So if let's say Israel hits right now, it wouldn't be surprising that within a 2 or 3 trading days that a barrel of oil for WTI trading at 75 could be trading at 85. All right. If nothing happens in terms of blockage of straits or destruction of oil wells or reserves, or oil reserves or oil pipelines or anything like that, then I think that WTI is going to be trading in the near term at 80, and Brent will be trading at the near term at 85. All right. And it can go up and down because oil markets are extremely volatile. It doesn't work really well using other structural analysis because there's such event risk and there's so much government intervention internationally. So it's very hard to really, it's like riding a tiger if you trade oil. All right. So another scenario is that the straits can't push oil through because, let's say, Iran and the Houthis start mining the straits. If that happens, then you're cutting off huge supplies from Saudi Arabia to other regions of the world. If that happens, you may actually see a $20 a barrel oil increase. Because if you shut down the actual flow of the Saudi oil, because they are such a major player, that's a big problem, and prices will rise accordingly. Now, depending on how long that strait is clogged up, depends on how elevated those prices will get and for how long they stay elevated. The United States will definitely have to get involved if the straits are mined or ships are destroyed as they go through these straits in the Middle East. So if that happens, you're talking about, instead of trading at 75 for WTI, you're talking at 95, $100 a barrel. All right. So now you're talking Brent at about 105 to $110 a barrel. All right. Now again, that dynamic is focused on Brent crude. So Brent crude may actually climb even higher, but WTI and Brent will trade together. They trade in tandem. All right. So so that's a major perturbation. Now the oil, now you can take out the mines, you can knock out the actors that are shooting up the oil rigs and the oil tankers. And once that's knocked out, then the flow can continue on in the strait. If Iran knocks out Saudi Arabia's oil fields, you're talking about longer disruption, and that would mean that Brent crude probably hits $200 a barrel. So that you're talking about potentially $150, $180 of WTI. Now these aren't all equally weighted probabilities. The probability of striking Iran's oil is probably around 60%. The probability of Saudi's oil being hit, I would say, is probably about 20%. All right. The Strait is probably a high probability that they're going to try to do something in the Strait to prevent the flow of oil. Now, is it only 50% restriction or 100% restriction of the flow of oil through the Strait? Who knows? Who knows? So, the probabilities are issues with the flow through the Strait and Iran probably getting hit with the oil wells. But either way, oil is probably going up. Now, if this all dies down and nothing happens, then oil, instead of trading at 75, may start moving slowly down to 70. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to stay elevated for a while. Now, here's the black swan thing. Trump is really into drill, baby, drill. So if Trump wins in November, early November, and elevated prices of $75, $80 a barrel in WTI go into the November election, and then if Trump wins, I suspect that there's going to be short people wanting to short oil, and there's going to be pressure to push oil back down. Now, the question is, will there be more incidences in the Middle East that drive oil back up? Who knows? That's why I'm saying that oil is extremely volatile, and you really have to pay attention to international news and policy and all this. Factors that affect oil: international affairs, wars, OPEC cutting of production or increasing production, the value of the dollar going up or going down, economic activity. Are there regions in the world that are major oil users, oil consumers, where their activity is going down? Well, they're not going to buy as much oil, and therefore there's going to be too much supply, and the oil price will go down. There's so many different dynamics that it's multifactorial, and not any one particular variable has equal weight in every time period. The weights of these variables change dynamically. So this is the reason why oil is extremely difficult to trade. You got to be professional to do it, right? You have to know what you're doing. So don't do what I'm doing. All right. Take my advice. I'll tell you how to navigate through the S&P 500 and give you some indicators. But oil is going up because of the Middle Eastern dynamic. Dollar is increasing. All right. Probably because of the economic activity numbers that came out. We have unemployment at 4.1%. And so the chances of a rate cut and the weakening of the dollar is lower probability. So you're seeing a strengthening of the dollar against the euro, and you're seeing a strengthening of the dollar against the yen. And so there's a little. So you're seeing kind of a risk on play, and this is why I think equities are also going to go up beyond 5,800 on the S&P 500. Now, in terms of VIX, it's trading at anywhere from 20 to 21 as of this recording, so that's a little elevated, but not too risky. But there is risk. Most likely, that risk is because of the Middle East, and that if the Middle East started to die down, it probably would go back down to about 15. So we don't know. We just don't know. So we're just going to have to navigate it point by point by point by point. I think that so there's two probably big events that we got to worry about: Middle East, and if there is a increase of kinetic activity between Israel and Iran, and Israel and Hezbollah, and what happens with the election. All right. Because I think that at least in the oil market, Trump probably in the longer term is going to drive down prices of oil because of drilling more. There's going to be a larger supply of oil in the market. And it's possible that this thing goes to $50 a barrel. So we may be trading at 85 and WTI or 80. And then all of a sudden over, a few months, we're trading at $50 a barrel because of, we're opening up the spigot in the United States. We'll see what happens. Again, there's lots of variables and it's hard to project out, but I see that the probability of going to $80 a barrel is more probable than going to $65 a barrel. So that's where we're at with the oil market. Dollar is strengthening a little bit, and the equity market is, it's hovering just below the 5,800 mark. It's like 5,720 right now, but it's going up and down. So, but it's going to pop. It's going to pop 5,800. It's going to go beyond that. So that's my take on it. Let's go in and listen to some of the commentators on Bloomberg.
On that. So, it is imaginable. It's just a choice that Netanyahu at the moment does not want to make. And I can't see any sign of him making that change anytime soon, especially when he has people in his government, who are absolutely opposed to it.
Right. All right, Mark, thank you very much. We really appreciate getting a few minutes of your time. Mark Champion, Bloomberg opinion columnist, giving us the latest on the Middle East and maybe what might be some next steps there, but a very difficult situation, a fluid situation. Hey, folks, tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Wall Street time, JP Morgan Chairman and CEO Jamie Dimon is going to sit down for an exclusive interview with Bloomberg's Lisa Abramowitz at the JP Morgan TechStars Conference in London. The pair will be discussing global markets, tech investments, risks, and opportunities within the world of AI, the global economy, and the U.S. election. So an expansive list of topics to discuss. We're going to take that live tomorrow morning. Bloomberg Surrounds will be simulcast with radio and television. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be
Now remember,
good stuff.
earnings are Friday.
Earnings are Friday.
Earnings are Friday. So we're not going to get any sneak peeks.
No? Okay. All right.
But,
Lisa will try. I'm sure Lisa will
she'll
try. So she'll try. But again, you're right. That kicks off the earnings season in earnest Friday with JP Morgan. Alex Steele and I, we're here in Orlando, Florida, Commonwealth National Conference. Trap Kloman, President and Chief Operating Officer of Commonwealth Financial Network, joins us in just several moments to discuss how Commonwealth has grown and evolved as an industry-leading RIA.
Let's go to El Jazeera.
Everything, every aspect of life is factored in through the lens of the genocide and how the world has dealt with it, how the Israelis have dealt with it, and how it has been allowed to go on for so long. So there are some parallels, ironically, but I think it's safe to say that for the most part, Palestinians and Israelis have never been as far apart.
No, thank you very much. Noor O'Day live there in Amman, Jordan. Well, let's take a look now at the situation for the Israeli captives being held in Gaza. 251 Israelis and foreigners were taken captive on October the 7th by Hamas and other fighters. 117 Israelis have returned home, some released in exchange deals, others rescued by the Israeli army. There are currently 101 captives held in Gaza, 36 of whom have been declared dead. But Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that half of the captives are alive. 37 bodies of captives have been repatriated to Israel. Most are believed to have been killed by Israeli fire. And 8 people have been rescued by Israeli forces, but not without devastating consequences. Sal Khairat has this report.
These are the faces of those taken into Gaza from southern Israeli towns a year ago. The youngest, Kfir Bibas, just 8 months old. The eldest, Shlomo Manzu, aged 86. His family were originally from Iraq. Hamas and other Palestinian factions kidnapped Israelis and foreign nationals in an early morning attack that took Israel by complete surprise as it marked the end of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. And just a day after the 50-year anniversary of what Israelis referred to as the Black Day, when it was defeated by Egyptian and Syrian soldiers in the October 6th war. Videos like this one of Noah Argamani were shared globally, of people taken captive from their homes, military barracks, and a massive
See,
desert
Al
raid.
Jazeera is just recycling.
The Israeli military rescued her and 3 others months later, but they killed 236 Palestinians in the process, mostly women and children. Her boyfriend is one of 101 captives still held in the Gaza Strip. Captives' families have tirelessly rallied every Saturday in Tel Aviv and other cities, desperately calling on Prime Minister.
They did a recording 4 hours ago.
If you have a child 12 or older and you'd like for them to get into the best university possible, I have something very important to tell you. You see,
Well, how the reverberations have spread right across the Middle East since that fateful day as Israel has waged war on Hamas in Gaza and, of course, against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Well, our first report tonight is from Jeremy Bowen, who examines the last 12 months of war, the lives transformed in Israel and in Gaza, where more than 40,000 people have died in the Israeli response. His report begins in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, close to the Gaza border.
The survivors of the attack on Kibbutz Kfar Aza have not come back to live here. The ruins have not been touched. Kfar Aza, right on the border, was one of the first targets of Hamas. They killed 62 people here and took 19 into Gaza as hostages. That buzz is from an Israeli drone heading for Gaza. Later, we heard airstrikes. Bereaved families and a grieving nation were promised total victory over Hamas by their prime minister. A year on, Hamas are still fighting. The ground around one house has been excavated. It was the home of Nirel Zini and his fiancée, Niv Raviv, both killed by Hamas. Nirel's father spent weeks looking for his son's head. He didn't find it. A neighbor said there was a nightmare on every corner.
We're still inside the trauma. We are not in post-trauma, like people say. We're still here. We're still in the war. My victory, I will be here with my son and daughter, with my grandchild, and living peacefully.
For Israelis, Kfar Aza and all the other places that Hamas attacked on the 7th of October have become repositories of a very deep and still raw national trauma. And the horror that happened here has, for the vast majority of Israelis, absolutely justified everything that Israel has done since then. A year ago, Israeli troops were still fighting Hamas when they led us into Kfar Aza 3 days after the attack. The year of war since then ripped away any illusion that the Middle East could be peaceful without resolving deep-seated conflicts. Hamas fighters lying where they were killed were seen by Israelis as enemies funded by Iran to destroy their state. And the sight of dead Israelis being carried out of the ruins brought back the Nazi Holocaust that killed 6 million Jews. These soldiers were being deployed north to the border with Lebanon. A year later, Israel and Iran are in direct conflict, plummeting towards all-out war. Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu promised a mighty vengeance. His defense minister said they were fighting human animals in Gaza and would act accordingly. This was Gaza City before last October. Hamas told the BBC they attacked Israel to put Palestinians back on the world's agenda. Israel has damaged or destroyed nearly 60% of all Gaza's buildings, according to satellite analysis. As the war in Lebanon deepens in Beirut, there are fears they might face something like this. Almost 42,000 Palestinians, mostly civilians, have been killed. 10,000 are missing, thought to be under the rubble. The estimate is that 40% of casualties are children. Israel insists it follows the laws of war, spares civilians, and it rejects and condemns the accusation of genocide made by South Africa at the International Court of Justice. More than 2 million Gazans, the UN says, are trapped in a humanitarian catastrophe without food, water, and medical care. As families are displaced repeatedly on Israel's orders, BBC Verify has tracked how quickly improvised camps spring up. The Israelis say they're protecting civilians. The UN says nowhere is safe. Israel does not allow.
We're Tire Rack. We test tires to provide you with truth, transparency, and unbiased recommendations. We're Tire Rack. We stock over 1 million tires to ensure we have what you need. We're Tire Rack. We work hard to ship your tires fast and free. We're Tire Rack. We offer convenient installation options to keep you moving forward. We do all this for one reason. Tires matter. TireRack.com. The way tire buying should be.
Israel does not allow journalists into Gaza, so trusted Palestinian colleagues filmed Insaf Hassan Ali and her family in Al-Mawasi, a supposedly safe area hit by at least 18 Israeli airstrikes. Insaf and her family have had to move 15 times.
We were walking on Salah ad-Din Street when a car was hit. We saw it burning. On the left, there were people killed. On the right, there were people killed. Even the donkeys were thrown around in the bombing. And we said, that's it, we're done. The next rocket will be for us.
On the West Bank, the other side of the Palestinian territories, violence and killing have increased sharply. This is Jenin, where many Israeli raids have not deterred or destroyed local armed Palestinian militias. The cemetery is filling up with their dead. The war in Gaza has radicalized both sides. The West Bank is already part of the pilot of serious conflict in the Middle East. There could be a bigger explosion here if Israel and Iran continue to accelerate into all-out war. The nightmare of the war that started in Gaza, spreading and igniting the Middle East, is happening. A ceasefire deal in Gaza might just cool the crisis and create a space for diplomacy. Perhaps the war can end in Gaza too, or perhaps it's too late for that.
Jeremy, you're in Jerusalem. Do you see this conflict already engulfing parts of the region, actually spreading wider and deeper?
Clive, is a really, really dangerous moment. And what was a very nasty and brutal stalemate, you could call it, really changed about a month ago when Israel decided to go on the offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Israelis have made it very clear they couldn't tolerate rocket fire into their country. Hezbollah gambled that their arsenal provided by Iran was too strong and that Israel wouldn't take that risk. Well, they did. They attacked, killed the leader, blew up those pages, have invaded into South Lebanon, and while they've inflicted massive blows on Hezbollah, its patron, the Iranians, instead of maybe just standing back, as Israel may have hoped, they hit Israel last Tuesday with ballistic missiles. So now everyone in the region and here are waiting to see what Israel will do. They've said they'll hit back. The way they hit back, where they hit, and what Iran does afterwards will determine the way this war spirals, either more towards disaster or perhaps slowing down that process. We'll see.
You will indeed. Okay, Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy Bowen, our international editor there, live in Jerusalem. Well, tonight, Israeli strikes continue in Lebanon. New evacuation orders have been issued for people living in the south. Hugo Bachega Our correspondent has just sent us this report from the capital, Beirut.
Overnight, and the most intense Israeli airstrikes in this war. In the morning, more airstrikes. This video appears to capture secondary explosions, a possible sign that weapons will be stored there.
This place was hit about 12 hours ago, and there's still smoke coming out of the rubble. There is a heavy smell in the air, and there is destruction all around, including some buildings far from here. I can count at least 3 underground floors. It's all destroyed.
Israel accuses Hezbollah of hiding weapons among civilians, an accusation Hezbollah denies. This building, residents told us, included a sweet shop. We found a bag with the name of the shop on the right, next to the tail fin of a mortar, unlikely to have been used by the Israeli military. We couldn't stay long.
You can go from here right now.
A group of men arrived, ordering us to leave. In Gaza, Israel's war against Hamas continues. Israel bombed another school housing displaced residents, saying Hamas had set up a control center in the building. A nearby mosque was also attacked. Israel said Hamas was operating there. The 2 strikes killed at least 26 people, according to Gaza's health ministry. Mohammed al-Matar lost her daughter and grandchildren.
Please God defeat Netanyahu. Please God defeat Israel. I hope God defeats you, America. You have made us cry over our children, grandchildren, and loved ones. My heart is breaking. My heart is breaking.
Back in Lebanon, the missiles come not only at night. Israel is not backing down in its war against Hezbollah, and in Beirut, there's no respite. BBC News, Beirut.
This is a moment in history that we don't often see, where we actually see genocide being perpetrated as it's happening. And in a situation where Western governments like the United States.
So let's go to Bloomberg here. Let's just listen.
That's changed with financial planning and a lot of the technology that's come to the space. And so a lot of universities across the country have certified financial planning programs, and they come out accredited, and they can come join an office and do a lot of the investment planning and run the work, and then join in the advisor meetings. And so as we think about attracting and retaining talent, there's a growing pipeline. So
I'll tell you, this whole idea of retaining talent. You know, when I was managing the portfolio over at Catholic Charities, you know, and we had Goldman Sachs come in and they did, you know, a pitch, and supposedly Goldman Sachs is the smartest people in the room. I'll tell you, it's total bullshit. Total bullshit. When it comes to Deloitte and Touche and you know, and Goldman Sachs and you know, these advisors and consultants and all that, they're all 90% of the people out there are fucking idiots. Even if they're educated, coming from Ivy League, they're idiots. It's a rare bird. They're rare to actually, you know, they actually have some, you know, common sense and intelligence, and this idea that we got to attract talent. It's common. To do what they do is common sense. You could teach a 10-year-old to do what they do, and the 10-year-old would probably do better. Idiots. They're just idiots.
You could clock like 16,000 steps just walking around the hotel. Like, I don't think you need to go to Disney for that.
No, it's awesome. It's a great facility here in Marriott. Just off property, but again, over at the park. What I noticed is there is nobody better than taking money out of your pocket than the Walt Disney Company.
Oh
it is
my God.
amazing.
Did you get the fast pass thing?
Karen took care of everything. I tagged along with her. But it's just, and nobody moves people around more efficiently than plumbers.
Yeah, make it as easy as possible.
And if you got a drink in your hand, boy, I wish there was a wastebasket. I could just turn to the right. There's the wastebasket. They think of everything. I don't know how they do it. So we're here at Orlando with the Commonwealth National Conference. We're gonna work events for this.
He before he went to Bloomberg, he used to actually manage money. All right, and he used to manage money for high net worth individuals. Okay, and he can't figure out why and how Disney decides to where to put a garbage can. See what I mean? See what I mean? We're run. We are run. This society is run by fucking idiots.
مخلط على غازة الخشمال المظون.
This is when he's talking about no food, no water, no electricity, no gas. Close it all
It's
out.
an entire nation out there that is responsible.
Shortly after October 7th, Israel sealed off Gaza's borders, including to foreign reporters. The Palestinian journalists left to tell the story would soon be killed at an unprecedented rate. Israeli forces quickly set their sights on Gaza's healthcare system. One by one, hospitals swelling with patients and refugees came under attack.
The difference between this genocide and the other wars that I had been in, the wars in Gaza, the 2021 war, the 2014 war, the 2012, 2009, and even the war in Yemen, the war in Syria, the comparison between them and a genocide is the comparison between a flood and a tsunami. Because 50% of the wound.
Like I said, you don't get the job done in previous periods of time. It's only going to get worse. So don't be surprised that now the tsunami happened. Kabbalistically, the Levi tribe, all right, and there's another clan within the tribes. It's Levi and I'd have to look it up. There's two of them. They ended up. There's a story where a female is raped in the Bible, and by some sort of outside clan as they were traveling in the desert, and the brothers, Levi and this other person, I don't remember the name. I don't remember I want to say it has a Z in it, like Zephra or something like that. I have to look it up. But these two groups ended up revenging the raping of their sister. All right. And they're absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. All right. And people don't realize that, you know what? Kindness also has another side of the coin. And that is, there can be brutality. All right. So, and what I'm going to say is kind of deep. When the Jews went into Egypt, they had to go through a lot of suffering because of not just the slavery and the building of the cities, these mud brick cities, but for them to be able to endure for hundreds of years, for them to go into literally, there was a physical manifestation of being in Egypt, but it's also it's also a representation on this plane of hell. So literally, when Jacob slowly went in, he went into Golis, into hell, into Egypt with ease. And the people of Israel, right? The people, the slaves of the Hebrew slaves ended up growing because they were prosperous and they multiplied, right? And they go out, and the thought is there were 600,000, right? Were there more or less? Who knows? But it seems that the interpretation is that there were 600,000 that left. There were like 70 that came in and 60 that left. 600,000 that left. 70 that came in. We're not sure if those are counts of males or males and females. But 70 go in, some number 70 go in, a very small number go in to hell and flourish and produce 600,000. And then they go out. All right. So, and then you have this person, Moses, right, that ends up being saved on a river, in a basket, and is raised literally in the center of power of hell. All right. And he eventually, and he sees everything, all of the sins and all the bad things that are happening, right? And is exposed to it and is raised in that environment. All right. So it tainted him in a way, and he had to run away from it. So he kills an Egyptian and he runs away. And he's in the desert, for a long time. And he has to see a burning bush that isn't consuming. Now, the easy interpretation is that, well, he's talking to God through this burning bush. If I remember right, he actually takes off his shoes as he approaches the burning bush. But this burning bush is also the burning of his soul. His soul will not perish. His soul will not be consumed, but he has to go through it because of what he experienced in hell. All right. But when you're exposed to this, so his soul's being purified, right? Then he ends up going, let my people go, and everybody knows the story, right? Right. But there's some deep stuff that's going on with that burning bush and the purification of his soul because of what he was exposed to in Golis or Egypt, right? All right. And it's a representation of, on this plane, a representation of hell, people going into hell. If you want to understand about this whole hell thing, and it's easy to go in, hard to get out, and there's a lot of suffering. All right, when you're dying, it's like easy, the light. Go to the light. All right, it's easy. Jacob walked in. There was famine, and he was walking into surplus to feed his flocks and his family and all this. It was easy to go in, hard to get out. And Jacob even knew that he had to do this. He knew that he was going into hell. All right. So the people of Israel now, but the Hebrews at the time, were exposed to evil, and they lived literally in hell for a couple hundred years or so. Some people say 400 years, and it depends on when you count the number, but it seems like around 210 or something like that. So around 200 years or so of living in hell. Some tribes have extreme, that could be very holy and get that transmission between the upper level and the lower level, and to have blessing that comes down, or an energy force that comes down. These same people, though, can do extreme destruction. Now, the best way to explain this is that you can take nuclear material and have it for peace and energy. And if you do it right, you might even be able to reduce, radiation exposure and waste. All right. Unfortunately, it's all commercialized, and I don't think they really care about the waste anymore. But there's radiation and all that. But the point here is you can take something very destructive, right, and put it in the right hands, and it can be for a good purpose. You can give the same thing to someone in a different mindset, same person, but a different mindset, and could be extremely destructive. All right. And this is the power of the levy and the power of the other brother that is very similar to the levies. And they were destined to become scroll writers and make tefillin. But this tribe, I can't remember the name of that, I have to look it up, but the levies and this other group, when something happens, like October 7th, or the raping of whoever it was in the Bible, right? There's extreme destruction, and you can't stop it. Now, it's hard for people to understand what I'm saying, but it's because of the forging in hell. And then they're left out. They come out, and they have a special ability. That ability is a curse and a blessing. The ability to bring peace and transmit a positive energy force. But if they are angry, they can transmit a negative force. And it's extremely powerful. And this is what you're seeing. You're seeing in Jacob, you have the 12 tribes. You have different individuals with different personalities and different attributes and powers, skills, weaknesses. All right. And this two of them, Levi is one of them, but I forgot the other one, but the name of it. But the two of them can be extremely destructive. And this is what you're seeing. And nothing will stop it. Nothing is going to stop it. Not diplomacy, not cutting weapons, nothing is going to stop it until the anger diminishes, until the mission and the anger is diminished. So all this destruction and stuff that you're seeing is coming back from the forging of these personalities of these different tribes within hell. Or if you want to use the Bible understanding, it's Egypt. But Egypt's hell. All right. And the story of the Jews going in and what it's like, it's the story of hell. All right. And what will happen when you come out. But there's a purification and there's a suffering, right? And this whole burning of the bush and trying to purify the soul of Moses, all right, before he goes back into hell, right? He came out of hell, right? He came out of Egypt, and he had a residualness that is not holy, that had to be removed. There had to be a burning process, purification process. If you pay attention to how kashrut laws are, it's about boiling and burning pans and plates and to purify for kosher cooking and all this, for cookware and plates and utensils, right? There's a heating process that needs to take place to allow to purify it. All right. Moses had to be purified before he went back into hell to try to get the other people out. Because if he went in without the purification, he would have been judged. Just like how just like Jacob, they had, it had to go through a purification process to be able to be ready, for this Torah, this revelation that came from Mount Sinai. The people would not be pure enough to be able to absorb that energy force. They would blow up. They would literally, if they weren't pure, they would disintegrate. So there's an attribute within the Jewish people, because of Levi and this other tribe, where if something happens, there is extreme negative force that is activated, and there's huge destruction. We're seeing that. It will burn out. But here's the strange thing about this. Sometimes you need to have all this like negative destruction for a rebirth to take place. Now, I was talking to John, and I don't know the answer to this. I do know this. Israel's borders are going to go back to biblical precepts. What was mentioned in the Torah, Israel's borders are going to be there. But that doesn't mean that it is before the mass destruction of Israel. I mean, people need to understand this. Borders are going back to biblical times. We don't know if Israel is destroyed first, and lots of other countries in that region are destroyed, and then there is a reconstitution of Israel to the biblical borders, or Israel is not destroyed, and the borders are to biblical area. We don't know. It's possible that Israel's destroyed in this process as a state, and that it's reconstituted, based on the biblical precepts. That might happen. It could very well happen. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows, and that might be the reason why the red heifers aren't sacrificed, because maybe these rabbis know that this is what's happening. I don't know. I do know this: the land will increase. Israel is going to have larger land, but does that mean will that happen will that happen before some sort of absolute destruction of Israel? Maybe, maybe not. I do know this: you can't stop the anger of some tribes of Israel. Not U.S. diplomacy, not the UN, not nuclear, nothing. Nothing is going to stop it, because it's bringing a negative energy down for judgment. And because they have that ability they have that ability for that transmission mechanism to bring down positive energy or bring down negative energy. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing Levi destroy because he saw another group rape, pillage, on a holiday, for all that matter. But it gets more complex, because the people that were hostages were ultra liberal, and the ultra liberals were fighting the Orthodox, and so it's much more complicated than how I am portraying. All right, the politics involved is much more complicated. But I do know this: the power of some tribes can bring down, if angry, extreme negative energy. And when you bring down that extreme negative energy, nothing will stop it. It's just absolute destruction has to happen. And then peace and prosperity comes out of that. Now, we aren't smart enough to understand why that destruction has to happen. Maybe there is a small percentage of those people that are destroyed, that are extremely evil, and they have to die. And that for peace and prosperity later in the future. We aren't smart enough to know the reasons. So let's stop pretending that we do, and this idea that let's just give peace a chance. There are certain things that are happening in this world, in the Middle East, that seem to have to reach some sort of homeostasis before a larger peace in the world can happen. And I'll tell you, there's a couple tribes in Israel that are extremely pissed off. and nothing's going to stop it. Nothing is going to stop it. So it can get really bad. Now, does that mean it's the destruction of Israel? It could. It could literally. And I had this conversation with John last night. So please watch episode. I think it's 80. It's part 21 with my talk with John Hogue. It could very well be where it's the destruction of Israel to reach biblical precepts and all this. Biblical precepts are going to be met. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Zero doubt in my mind about that. The question is, how do we get there? Does that mean the total destruction of Israel and somehow it's reconstituted? There seems to be a wider war. A lot of people would say, well, the destruction of Israel, how would it reconstitute? There's Jews all over the world. There's Jews all over the world, and something big could happen in the Middle East where almost all that hate and all that destruction, they're all gone. The Saudis, the Jordans, the Jordanians, the Iran and the Lebanese and the Syrians and the Egyptians, they could be all gone. Something big could happen that we can't fully understand. And then it's reconstituted. Maybe. It could be the destruction of the Jewish people and Sunni and Shia. And whoever's left it repopulates and we wake up, after seeing that kind of destruction and that awe, the awe of the force of God. All right. And then we, as a world people, reconstitute, Israel and it's in the biblical sense. Who knows? We don't know. It could very well happen. So let's stop pretending we know. We don't know, but we do. But it has been written that it will happen. How it happens, we don't know, but it will happen. So, all right. So let's let me. I know I went off on a tangent. I think it's an important piece, though. Realize that Egypt, even though it was highly technological, it was a major economic power at the time. It was kind of the center of power in the world. That it was representative of on this plane of hell, and that Jacob going in was the easing into hell with a few people, and trying to be prosperous and trying to be fruitful in that environment before the exile. And so, and they had to continue on with their purification process before they were ready for Mount Sinai. But there's this, and we're kind of like living in it today. It's possible that the world at large, is in Egypt. All right, because of globalization and we're living in hell on this plane. We're actually in hell, and we are slaves. We're debt slaves and slaves to the man and slaves to the, to our, these different countries and taxation and all this stuff. I mean, we're kind of living in hell now. Or maybe there'll be some sort of great exodus for the world, not just of the Middle East. Who knows? But there is this something to be there's something to take away from this idea of the burning bush and the purification of Moses' soul, so he can go back into Egypt to get the people out. They're stuck in hell. All right. Let me do commercial here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-aging structural nanosilver box. In that, you get the Max 35. You get the probiotic, which helps with your gut biome. You get the structural nanosilver gel that neutralizes pathogens, and it also is skincare. Structural nanosilver toothpaste, which is the best toothpaste that you can buy. And you get your choice of 5 different varieties of structural nano silver soap. The one I have in my hand is lemongrass. So the last product in the structural nano silver anti-aging box, your choice of lozenges. They come in a 21 pack. So you get 21 lozenges in each package. You can get it in Manuka honey or in elderberry zinc. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the anti-aging structural nano silver box so you can be well supplied, especially for the cold season. That's really important. Or you can just buy individual items if you want instead of a full anti-aging box. It's up to you. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. So with that said, with that biblical teaching, right? Let's go back to Al Jazeera, because it's always fun to see the war and destruction of the world. I mean, Al Jazeera, I think,
Relenting as
all
rain
kidding aside,
bombardment,
all kidding
resulting in-
aside, Al Jazeera, it's good and bad. Al Jazeera plays on the heartstrings of individuals to try to stop the war in the Middle East. The thing is it's biased. It doesn't want Israel to exist. It doesn't want Israel to have the Temple Mount. All right. Literally, their programming is against Torah, what the Torah says is going to happen. All right. Literally. The thing is that they are giving a side that is important to know. Unfortunately, I think mainstream media in the United States is too biased. You don't get the story. I want the facts. I don't want the bias. I just want the facts. Right. So you have to go to like the live stream of Al Jazeera to understand the other side's argument, because they are pretty good at giving real-time information. It's biased, but at least you're getting some real-time information. You don't really get that kind of real-time information with some of the other channels, all right, easily. So they are doing a service by allowing people to tap into what is going on in the region, and you get the Arab spin of it, which is important to understand. You also have to understand and get the Israeli spin and kind of synthesize the two to understand what's really going on, right? Because both sides are at fault. Like I said, Israel is not lily white. 100% they are not lily white, right? I'm just trying to explain that there are certain dynamics that are in play here that it doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter what the international community thinks. They're just playing out. Now, why they're playing out this way, none of us are smart enough to know that. All right? It's some metaphysical thing that's going on that's very complex, and there's no way we're going to really fully understand it. So, but I do think that these types of news sites and streaming is important, right? There's a lot of destruction that's going on, and you kind of need to know it in real time, understand how it's developing. I just feel that our U.S. media is a little bit too soft. It's too polished. It's too commercialized. It's just, maybe that's me. I prefer that the olden days of CNN, before they were kind of like became a mouthpiece for the CIA, right? But there's a lot going on, and we're losing the ability to get in real time information. So Al Jazeera is a good one. France 24 is a good one. Sometimes BBC's live feed is good. DW is a good one. So, but there is bias. There is bias. But an intelligent person takes a look and says, okay, what's this group saying? What's this group saying? What's this group saying? Okay. Once you get the facts and the fact pattern, then you can make your own conclusion or do your own analysis. But there is a lot of, death and destruction in the world, and it does move markets. It does, these things do affect your livelihood, all right?
The deadliest conflicts in the 21st century. The offensive began on October the 7th after an unprecedented attack by Hamas. Members of Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of the group, and other Palestinian resistance fighters infiltrated Israeli territory by air, land, and sea. 1,139 Israelis were killed that day, including soldiers and police officers. 251 people, Israelis and foreign nationals, were taken captive. What ensued was a declaration of war by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Hamas and a promise to eliminate the group, unleashing a war of revenge and many firsts, breaking records in scale and brutality. 41,870 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the start of this war. Elderly, men, women, but the ones paying the heaviest price have been the children, who make up nearly half of the Strip's population. In 1 year, over 16,000 children have lost their lives, the highest death toll for children in 1 year of conflict. But even surviving has come at a cost. More than 19,000 children have been orphaned, losing one
Okay,
or
16,
conflict.
over
But even
16,000 children.
surviving has come at a cost. More than 19,000 children have been orphaned, losing one or both.
16,000 children have been killed in this incident. I want you to look up, I don't know the number, look up how many children in 1 year have died, were killed in the United States because of abortions. Now, I'm pretty sure that it's more than 16,000. So where's the ultra liberal? Where's their priorities? Do children really have a right to live according to the ultra liberal mindset? Where's the delineation where life is important for a child? Is it in the womb? Is it outside the womb? Do women have rights? If women have rights, why don't the unborn have rights? What's going on here? Because there's something else that they're trying to push, and that is an emotional fallacy. They want to push an emotional fallacy, even though children are being killed. The reality of the situation is that because the international community wasn't willing to solve the problem, there needs to be more war and destruction before it reach homeostasis in that region. And it's only going to get worse if you don't get the job done. And I'm not wrong on this. This thing goes all the way back to the 1960s. The 1960s, and they didn't get the job done. And you got to just keep on going. And then you add in, CIA involvement and ISIS and post 9/11 involvement and all the stuff that has happened with the national security state, right? And the military-industrial complex, to the point where, does our military-industrial complex really care about those 16,000 children that got killed? Probably not. You think any of these people that are talking about their stocks, right, really care about the 16,000? Probably not. You think the average New Yorker really cares about the 16,000 that died in Gaza? Probably not. I bet the average person in Dearborn, Michigan, who's Muslim, doesn't really care about what's going on in Gaza and those 16,000 that died. Because unfortunately, in this world, there's a lot of egoism. There's a lot of just meism. There's a lot of just selfishness. Now, unfortunately, children have to be killed in a war zone. That's collateral damage. And when you have an enemy embedding themselves in the population, stuff like that happens. So, but where's the outcry? Is it children's lives important or not? If they are important, then we got to have a larger conversation about all the abortions that are happening in the United States. I'm pretty sure that more than 16,000 children have died through abortions in the United States in 1 year. I'm pretty sure about that.
Parents killed, orphaned, but also maimed. The UN estimates 1,000 children in Gaza have lost at least one limb, making up what is believed to be the biggest cohort of pediatric amputees in history. Israel has also targeted an unlikely group in combat, health workers, many arrested, tortured, and over 800 of them killed. This has also been the deadliest conflict in recent memory for journalists. 174 media workers have been killed. And unlike most wars, the people of Gaza have had nowhere to go. Unable to leave, they are relegated to declared so-called safe zones that the Israeli army has been pounding. 90% of people in Gaza have been displaced, some having to move not once, twice, but multiple times. Weapons have not been the only tool in this war, starvation as well. About 96% of the entire population is facing high levels of acute food insecurity. Many children have died of starvation. No one has been spared, and nothing has been spared. More than 75% of Gaza's building infrastructure has been destroyed. Hospitals, schools, universities, mosques, and churches gone. What remains are these apocalyptic scenes of rubble, a scorched earth of broken lives, and a shattered future. Welcome to Al Jazeera's special coverage, Genocide in Gaza, 1 year on. We begin with Hamda Salhout's report on what happened that fateful day, October 7th, 2023.
This is a manifestation of that negative energy that I'm talking about from Levy and his brother. I don't remember the name, I'd have to look it up, but there is extreme destruction in Gaza. But it's because of prior epochs throughout the decades where they didn't get the job done, and Hamas reconstituted and formed and planned. Same thing with Hezbollah, same thing with Iran. That's why Lebanon in the south is going to get leveled. Trust me on this. Trust me on this. Totally leveled.
It's described as the biggest security failure in Israel's history. Palestinian fighters from Gaza launched a surprise attack, which began with firing thousands of rockets all over Israel, overwhelming the country's missile defense systems. Then, breaking through several layers of secured borders from the ground and from the skies above in a massive attack on southern Israel.
ابدأوا بالزحف اليوم الآن وليس غدا نحو فلسطين، ولا تجعلوا حدودا ولا أنظمة ولا قيودا تحرمكم شرف الجهاد والمشاركة في تحرير المسجد الأقصى.
In their thousands, fighters from Hamas's Al-Qassam brigades and Palestinian Islamic Jihad's Al-Quds brigades took over Israeli military bases and Israeli-controlled border crossings along the Gaza periphery. The attack sparked disbelief across the globe, especially in a place known for its strict security.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה, לא במבצע, לא בסבבים, במלחמה.
Hamas coined the operation Al-Aqsa Flood, but for Israel, one of the darkest days in its history that's become known as a massacre.
أنتم اليوم على موعد مع النصر العظيم والفتح المبين من على جبهة غزة العزة.
At least 1,139 people were killed in the October 7th attacks. 251 Israelis and foreigners were taken captive, and a year later, nearly 100 still remain in Gaza.
Now, it's important to mention. It's important to mention, and I've been saying this since October 7th. It's important to mention because of the internal strife in Israel, the ultra liberals were attacked by the Muslims. God allowed the attack to happen because the ultra liberal is a major problem and they were desecrating Yom Kippur. They desecrated the shuls in Tel Aviv during Yom Kippur. All right. And then after Yom Kippur is Sukkot, and then there's Simchas Torah, and that's when October 7th happened. All right. So there was a curse that happened on on ultra liberal Israelites. All right. But then there's this new, it sets in motion that where, okay, not only was there a curse that happened on the ultra liberal, right, with the killing, but also the hostages. The majority of the hostages are ultra liberal, right? And now that sets in motion the anger within Levi and his brother to do absolute destruction. And it doesn't turn out well. Trust me, it doesn't turn out well. We're seeing this play out, all right? Now, a lot of people were saying the Israelis weren't going to be able to get through Gaza. They pretty much leveled the place. Did they get all of Hamas? No, but they're still working on it. There's not much left of Hamas. Now they're putting their attentions to the West Bank and the Northern Front, especially the Northern Front. Okay, and something very similar is going to happen in that zone, in that buffer zone. Litani, I think it's called the Litani River. So with that, in that buffer zone off of 1701 resolution from the UN, that whole area is going to get bombed. That whole area is going to get destroyed, and then Israeli forces are going to move in. Now, some people, John thinks that they've already put mechanized forces into that region. I don't think that's the case. I don't think they have put mechanized forces in that region. They bombed it, and they have special forces in that region, but I don't think standard infantry or artillery is in tanks are in that buffer zone yet. There may be small platoons or something that's tied to the special forces, but I don't think the mass ground invasion hasn't happened yet. All right, so that's what we're seeing play out. But everyone wants to say give peace a chance.
אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
Among the hardest hit areas were the towns and settlements near the Gaza border, like Kibbutz Be'eri, Kfar Aza, Nahal Oz, and Sderot. And most notably, the Nova Music Festival in Kibbutz Re'im, where 364 people were killed. But the most shocking series of failures on the 7th was the delayed Israeli military response. A response that sparked several internal investigations as to how and why the army took hours to respond to the biggest attack in its history. Handasahu, Al Jazeera.
And Israelis are paying tribute to the 364 people who were killed at the Nova Festival exactly 1 year ago. Families of the victims observed a minute's silence to mark the moment when Hamas fighters launched their surprise attack. 44 people from the site were taken captive to Gaza. Let's bring in Noor Ode. She's joining us live from Jordan's capital, Amman. That's because the Israeli government has banned Al Jazeera from reporting in the occupied West Bank and Israel. Noor, many people in Israel call it the worst day since its founding in 1948. Tell us how they are marking this anniversary.
Well, Elizabeth, it almost seems like there are two Israels at the moment because the society is so polarized. And everybody is taken by grief and shock because that attack was really shocking. And everything subsequent to that builds on that pain. On the one hand, you have the right-wing Israel that is overtaken by rage and the desire to exact revenge and wanting to change the face of the Middle East, as Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, says. He wants to go to Lebanon. He wants to decapitate Hezbollah. He wants to end Hamas. He's striking at Yemen. He's threatening Iran. And the Israeli right sees this as an opportunity. And then you have the other Israel. You have the families of Israeli captives who want to refocus attention on releasing the captives, on reaching a ceasefire deal, knowing that only a deal that ends the war on Gaza could give the captives the possibility of being released. Whoever is still alive can come home alive. And so there is a lot of frustration on that end. And all of that is compounded going off in the Tel Aviv area all day. First, because of rock alive. And so there is a lot of frustration on that end. And all of that is compounded when you see that sirens have been going off in the Tel Aviv area all day. First, because of rockets fired from Gaza by Hamas. Then, because over 130 rockets were fired from Hezbollah to the north on northern cities and northern areas, including all the way to Haifa, and now a surface-to-surface missile fired from Yemen, and it had to be intercepted by the Israeli Air Force. Now, these events, the fact that Israel hasn't been able to declare victory despite all that talk, only adds to the frustration and only convinces 77% of Israelis who already believe that releasing the captives should be the priority, and so ending the war, not expanding it, should be where the focus of the Israeli government is, but it isn't at the moment.
No,
thank you
the
very much
reason
for that.
being is that doesn't solve the problem. Doesn't solve the problem. Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran's theocratic regime needs to be destroyed. And until then, it's not going to end.
To Israel's security.
Yeah, that's right. There's no question that the attack that occurred on Israel in October of last year certainly upended U.S. foreign policy and really thrust Israel to the forefront of Joe Biden's agenda when it comes to international affairs. And so that is why, just one reason that the Biden administration is marking the anniversary.
Brent oil
it's
just went to
also
$80 a barrel.
remember the victims, the president said. So he is holding a candle.
Remember what I was saying. Remember what I was saying, that, Brent is the international trade, right? And it was trading, as we were starting to record this, about $78 a barrel. Now it's at $80 a barrel, right? So that means that 75 for WTI, 76, somewhere in there. We may see $85 a barrel of Brent crude by the end of the week or beginning of next week, depending on what happens there. But there's definitely a move. There definitely flows into oil futures.
And remembrance. Now,
76
the
for
former
WTI.
President Donald Trump, who is the Republican presidential nominee, he is also holding his own event down in Miami. He is going to be holding a remembrance event, but also taking a stab at the current Biden administration, saying that they are to blame for much of what has occurred, saying that their policies have enabled Iran and its proxies, and as a result have made the region as well as the United States less secure. And Congress itself is also going to be holding their own events. And the House itself has unveiled a resolution calling for the surrender as well as the release of the captives, some who hold U.S. citizenship.
Kimberly, thank you very much for that. That's our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, live in Washington, D.C. Alon Pinkas is a former ambassador and consul general of Israel in New York. He says after a year of war on Gaza, the Israeli government realizes it cannot eliminate Hamas.
If you look at the composition of the government, then lasting peace would be somewhat of an oxymoron. And that was true until October 6th. This is a government that basically in its basic guidelines of December 2022 said that there will not be any negotiation with the Palestinians. Now, Israel thinks that we can ignore the Palestinian issue with Mr. Netanyahu inventing, devising, adopting, and expounding a policy of weakening the Palestinian Authority via strengthening the Hamas or preserving Hamas's power in Gaza. And in doing so, he can always have an excuse why there is no credible partner on the Palestinian side. Now, you can live in this denial for so long, and then came October 7th. Yes, you're right. Using the word eradicate at first, the idea was to eradicate Hamas. But I think there's a realization that is not easy to do. That's almost impossible to do. The only way conceivably to do that is a course of action that Israel will not take, and that is basically occupy the entire Gaza Strip and be responsible for the lives of the desolate lives for people who are living there above and beyond those who are members of Hamas. Now, Hezbollah is a completely different thing. So when you said eradicate everyone that threatens Israel, yeah, every country would love to do that, but that's mafia or mobster mentality. That's not how countries can and should be run.
Let's take a look at the situation for the Israeli captives being held in Gaza. 251 Israelis and foreigners were taken.
Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and the radical establishment are all working against my father-in-law and stopping the pro-America agenda.
Ahmed Sekou Touré, a leading figure in Guinean independence, left his mark on the country's history, but his legacy remains deeply controversial. Amid national tributes and the memories of a dark past, his regime continues to cause divisions 40 years after his death.
President Sekou Touré's system of governance was one of permanent conspiracy.
Today, October 7th, marks 1 year since Hamas carried out its
So everyone's cycling with advertisements. So let's drop into
818,000 job revision, right? And then Friday we get a surprise over 100,000 more jobs, and it's like, okay, which data point is correct? And granted, the economy and the stock market, the market's a leading indicator, right? So the market wants to get happy, but not too happy to cause interest rates to go up, because then we'll have this volatility that shakes everything up.
So you're basically describing, that soft landing, that Goldilocks, and to your point about the jobs number, Citi had a note out that said, look, they are skeptical about that soft landing and say we could see revisions later, and then that's going to affect how we view the overall economy. So if you're looking at a 60-40, is still 60-40 the right way to go, or like would we need some?
Not for everybody, right?
Right. Okay. So not for everybody.
But I think a lot of people would be happy to make. I think there's a chart that if interest rates fall by 1%, we already got a 0.5% cut. That the upside to many parts of the bond market, excluding the 30-year Treasury, because I think that has too much volatility for most people, is like 5.5% to 12% returns on the upside, and maybe 2 to 4% on the downside in the bond market. And I'm thinking a lot of people that are heading into retirement or are in retirement would be happy with the 5 to 12. With very low downside versus a market that's kind of riding high. And I'm only saying that from the standpoint of the growth part of the market. That I kind of think that, decide how much volatility do you want to take to get that extra couple percent. If you don't need it, are you willing to take the 10% downside, the 15% downside? So I just love that income can buffer volatility now. I think there's great dividends in many of the value side of the market, and the international markets. And everybody's like, oh, the market's overvalued, but the equal weight S&P isn't overvalued. The small and mid caps are as attractive to the large caps as they've been since the year 2000. So there's just like a lot of dislocations that I see where, wow, like, why is everybody chasing this when there's all these other things that are not expensive, that if interest rates do in fact continue to come down, you have to kind of look at your portfolio and say, okay, now it's a different environment. We're not in a rate hiking environment, we're a rate cutting environment. What parts of the market are going to do well when rates are coming down? And it's the companies that have a lot of debt that get helped.
Yep.
You know, and wages are holding up okay, and people are still spending. So, you know, I think there's something to be said for opportunities.
If many of your clients are either in retirement or approaching retirement, how about alternatives? Is that not something for them? Because I hear a lot of RAs that are they do talk about alternatives.
Yeah, and I do think alternatives have their space in a portfolio. A lot of people don't understand them. I think it's interesting, you know, the media in general, we focus so much on the stock market, and then I'll have a person say, explain the bond market to me. And then, okay, we're going to explain the bond market, then we're going to explain alternatives, and then how can a person track what that alternative is supposed to do? Because I think a client is comfortable when they understand their portfolio and why it's structured the way it is. And does that resonate with their thoughts on the economy and the world and geopolitical risk and all these things that we have to deal with? And days like today, when we see, and even last week with the Middle East conflict, that when you have energy kind of being the sector that's going well, I'm thinking that's not a healthy market. You know, remember 2022, energy did well, nothing else did. So it's kind of worry about that.
So when you take a look, we were just talking about, you know, bonds and where to take risk there. Do you think that the money, are you telling your clients that have money in money market funds or high yield savings account, do they stay there or do they need to put that money to work elsewhere? And I guess when do they do that?
So reinvest a big risk because people got kind of happy with their 5+% cash rates. And we've been talking to almost every client, you know, if you don't need this money for the next year, you know, if you need it, then keep it in a money market because you're going to use it anyway. But this is the time, and actually I would say the best time would have probably been last October when the 10-year yield was 5, right? And the bells rang, and it was like, oh my God, 5! We haven't seen 5 on a 10-year in a long time. So so I kind of think even now, okay, the 10-year is above 4, and the market doesn't like that, and everything's kind of repricing short term. But I think that if you consistently invest and you're diversified across all areas of the income market, knowing that 90+% of your return is going to come from your starting yield, I think it's a nice little setup.
So here we are at the Commonwealth National Conference, 2,000+ fellow RIAs here. Why do you come here? What do you learn?
I just think Commonwealth Financial Network has done a fantastic job of attracting like-minded professionals. There's a lot of people that are serious professionals. We like to exchange ideas. We learn from each other. There's no like jealousy.
Like, aren't you all competitors too?
I don't think so.
No,
I think we compete with ourselves,
Okay.
you know, and we try to make ourselves better. So I've gotten a lot of good ideas from my fellow advisors, and I've exchanged some things that I thought were useful, and we all become better, and the industry becomes better because we share ideas.
And how are you growing your business right now?
It's mostly referrals. If we do a really good job for our clients and we stay in touch with them, and we do a lot of people are doing virtual meetings, but we're doing a lot of in-person meetings. It's kind of the nature of our business. And I have a fantastic team. So, you know, I can't be everywhere at all times, but we just have a wonderful team, and we keep our clients very close to us. We know exactly what's going on in their lives, and we know how to adapt their portfolio and their planning to the changes that their lives are.
Where are you based?
We're based in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
That's why I'm missing, but most people don't know why I'm missing is a suburb of Reading.
Right. So what's a typical client for you guys?
You know what? People have a little bit more money than they used to have. Like,
please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Since everyone has money, you can go and improve your skin. Get the collagen, the structural nanosilver gel, and the vitamin C. Now you can purchase these individually, or you can get the anti-aging skincare beginner's box. And you get the vitamin C, which helps to improve not only your immune system, but vitamin C helps with your skin because it cross-links with collagen. And in that anti-aging skincare beginner's box, you get the collagen. It has an amazing amino acid profile. You take it every day. There's a big scooper. You mix it with food or with water or with milk or whatever. And then topically, you use the structural nanosilver gel. You put it on your skin. Best way to do it is put it on right before you go to bed. When you wake up, exfoliate, and you'll notice that your skin is clearer and tighter. Now, for the advanced box, the anti-aging skin health advanced box, you have the resveratrol, which gets rid of senescent cells, helps with the mitochondria, and it improves the basal layer. Basal layer is what produces new skin cells. And C60, your choice of extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, or avocado oil. C60 is suspended in this oil, and C60 is a molecule that will soak up free radicals. Free radicals cause damage to your cell. If you soak them up, if you neutralize them, then what happens is that the cell's health increases and your mitochondrial health will improve. That means you'll have more energy and the cells will perform better. So the basal layer will be healthier when you take C60. So that basal layer, your new skin cells are being produced, right? And so your basal layer's health is improving with the resveratrol and the C60. The middle layer, the dermal layer, and the epidermal layer is improving because of the collagen and the cross-linking with vitamin C. So you drink water, drink filtered water, like 32 ounces or 64 ounces throughout the day. And the vitamin C, the water, and the collagen will cross-link and improve your dermal layer. So that's the middle layer. And then the topical layer, the top layer, will be improved by the structural nanosilver gel. So get the beginner's box skincare anti-aging box that I have, or the advanced box. Or you can buy the products individually. If you want just the collagen or the vitamin C, you can buy them individually on my store. It's up to you. But there is a little bit of a discount when you purchase the boxes. So it's up to you. It's up to you on how you want it to do it. But I have told you how to improve your skin by taking collagen, vitamin C, and structural nanosilver gel, C60, and resveratrol. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the skin care boxes that I offer. All right, what's going on here?
Disappointment that was created in the 70s, and it just never got updated because there was no need to change it. Well, now there's a desperate need to change it. It's kind of holding up these projects happening.
Such arbitrary regulations are quite common, and approval for conversions often takes as long as it would for a new build, even though the structure's already in place.
Cute. Here's a single sentence on the racket. Finally, comma, will third quarter become the 60th quarter out of the past 62 in which actual results exceed end of quarter estimates? Sam Stovall, how is the earnings season gamed? Is it the companies gaming it? Is it sell side gaming it? Is it Lisa Mateo's gaming it? What is the racket of 60 out of 62 quarters? OMG, they did better than we expected.
Well, good morning, Tom. Good morning, crew. I think basically management does a very good job of managing expectations. We had actually thought at on June 30th that third quarter results would be up 8%. Now the estimate is for mid to low 3% gain. This is data coming from S&P Capital IQ consensus estimates. So really the numbers have come down quite dramatically. At first people might worry and say, oh no, what does that really imply for the market? But as my father would say, rarely do you injure yourself falling out of a basement window. So if the earnings estimates are this low to begin with, you really have only upside to go.
Have you given up on double-digit earning growth?
For this quarter, and there are some sectors, in particular healthcare and information technology, that are both expected to post greater than 14% year-on-year results. But there are more sectors that are expected to show slight declines than advances.
Sam, the year is 2001. New York University, West Village. Marty Gruber's asset allocation class, young Damian Sassower, was listening to you talk about sector selection and its importance in driving portfolio performance. I'd like you to talk to me in today's day and age about factor investment, low vol, momentum, quality, growth value. These are new sort of factors that seem to be driving market performance, no?
Well, I think what it's showing is that the ETF companies are coming up with strategies really to fit investor behavior. I always like to say that I learned the best about investing from Clint Eastwood when he said that a man's got to know his limitations. So by folk realizing that your emotions could become your portfolio's worst enemy, if you can extract your emotions by either investing in low volatility, focusing on quality, whatever the investigation results are, that's the better for the investor.
David, Clint Eastwood's a level 2 CFA. He didn't get through levels.
Looking down, Sam Stovall looking down the steely barrel of the gun of these markets. Sam, seriously though, dividend and earning yields, they've fallen below treasury yields here. Talk to us about, equity bond market correlations, the 60-40, anything there that we should keep an eye on?
Well, I think certainly right now, investors are embracing the core belief that we have a bullish bent at this point. Lower inflation, interest rates that are coming down from the Fed, potential for China stimulus, 14% earnings
I want to go
growth
to
in
democracy now
2025.
because
And
I always get a kick out watching this liberal.
This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give.
Liberal now.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's military has ordered hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to evacuate their homes or face death as it launches a fresh ground offensive in the northern Gaza Strip. The latest mass evacuation order came on the first anniversary of the start of Israel's brutal assault on Gaza following Hamas's surprise attack on October 7th. Over the weekend, at least 26 Palestinians were killed after Israeli forces attacked a mosque and a school sheltering displaced people in Deir al-Balah. Elsewhere, at least 9 children were among 17 killed when Israel's military bombed the Jabalia refugee camp. Many residents were unable or unwilling to leave their homes.
I am staying here. Where else would I go? I want to die here. As long as they say that evacuation is forbidden, where will I go? We are staying. If they want us to die, so be it. And I suffer from osteoarthritis. Where do I go?
On Sunday, an Israeli artillery shell struck the home of 19-year-old journalist Hassan Hamad in Jabalia, killing him. In recent weeks, Hamad had received death threats via WhatsApp from an Israeli number. He also received phone calls and text messages from an Israeli officer ordering him to stop filming. Hassan Hamad is at least the 175th Palestinian journalist killed in Gaza since last October. He's among at least 41,900 Palestinians killed over the past year in Gaza. Another 97,000 have been injured, according to Gaza's health ministry, though those figures are certain to be a vast undercount. Dozens of massive explosions rocked the Lebanese capital overnight Sunday, marking Israel's heaviest bombardment on Beirut and the city's southern suburbs since Israel widened its war on Lebanon 2 weeks ago. Earlier today, Israeli warplanes bombed a fire station in the town of Barahib, killing at least 8 people. On Sunday, Hezbollah fired rockets at the Israeli port city of Haifa, wounding at least 10 people. Israel's assault has now displaced 1.2 million people in Lebanon, after headlines will go to Beirut for the latest. In Israel, the loved ones of hostages took to the streets over the weekend, blocking traffic in Tel Aviv, holding protests marking the 1-year anniversary of the October 7th Hamas attack. Over 1,100 people were killed in Israel in Hamas-led attacks a year ago, while at least 250 were taken hostage. Around 100 of the hostages remain in Gaza, though only 70 of them are still believed to be alive. 105 hostages were released by Hamas during a temporary ceasefire in November. This is Yael Or, whose cousin Dror was killed 1 year ago, but whose body remains held in Gaza.
Why are they still in Gaza a 4 years later?
because of Netanyahu. Netanyahu wants to stay in power forever, and to do that, it has dragged Israel into eternal, never-ending war. This means that our hostages have been abandoned in Hamas death tunnels deep under Gaza. Netanyahu has committed crimes
what I mean by the
against
liberal?
his own people.
Later in the
This is what I'm talking
broadcast,
about
we'll
with-
speak with
This is what I'm talking about with the stupid liberal in Israel. They don't want to solve the problem. They don't really want to solve the problem. These liberal Jews in Israel, they don't want the temple to be rebuilt. They don't want orthodoxy. They don't want to follow the precepts of the Bible. They want to live their little liberal life. And their liberal life literally has created instability in the society. You see it in other societies, in Europe and even in the United States. Ultra-liberalism hurts society. That's why I keep on saying it's about God, country, and family. Ultra-liberals aren't about really family creation. They're about abortion and about, gender fluidity and all that crap. They're not really patriotic. And they don't want to foul spirituality and morality. Ultra liberals cause society to go downhill. And that's the big problem in Israel. Too many ultra liberals.
Israeli peace activist Maoz Inan, who lost both his parents in the October 7th attack. We'll also speak with Aziz Abu Sara, a Palestinian peace activist. Together, Maoz and Aziz have traveled the world, met with the Pope and U.S. Congress members, calling
Wouldn't
for
it be
an end
nice
to the
to actually have a warmonger on the panel just to get their perspective? Like, maybe a levy.
occupation, an end to war, and calling for a permanent ceasefire. French President Emmanuel Macron says France is no longer sending arms to Israel and called on other nations to halt deliveries of weapons.
Néanmoins, nous essayons aussi d'être cohérents. Et lorsque nous
However, we also try to be consistent. And when we call for ceasefires, this is the case for Gaza. This was also the case for Lebanon last week. Well, we try not to call for a ceasefire while continuing to deliver weapons of war. And I think it's just consistency.
Meanwhile, in an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes, Vice President Kamala Harris defended U.S. military aid to Israel, which soared to a record $17.9 billion over the past year. A senior Pentagon official warned the White House last October that Israel's plan to uproot more than 1 million Palestinians from their homes in Gaza would be a humanitarian disaster and could violate international law, leading to war crime charges against Israel. That's according to Reuters, which reports the warning came in an October 13th email to the White House from Dana Stroul, then the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East. Stroul wrote that an assessment by the Red Cross predicting a humanitarian catastrophe from Israel's mass expulsion order had left her chilled to the bone. Despite those concerns and similar dire warnings from the State Department's Bureau of Democracy, Labor, and Human Rights, the White House expedited the transfer of weapons to Israel, including thousands of precision-guided missiles and 2,000-pound bombs. Meanwhile, DropSite News is reporting Secretary of State Antony Blinken last October signed off on a plan by Israel to bomb trucks bringing humanitarian aid into Gaza. Blinken's approval came after he joined an emergency meeting of Israel's war cabinet at the Israeli military headquarters in Tel Aviv last October 16th and 17th. After the talks, cabinet member Bezalel Smotrich said, quote, "We in the cabinet were promised at the outset that aid trucks hijacked by Hamas and its organizations would be bombed from the air and the aid would be halted," he said. Hundreds of thousands of protesters marched in cities across the world Saturday to demand an end to Israel's brutal assault on Gaza and its widening war on Lebanon. Huge crowds flooded the streets of London, Berlin, Paris, Istanbul, Melbourne, Australia, Cape Town, South Africa, and Karachi, Pakistan, in solidarity with Palestinians. Here in the United States, protesters rallied in downtown Washington, D.C. near the White House. This is Anissa Dawoodi of the Palestinian Youth Movement.
Our role here in the United States, and specifically here in Washington, D.C., is to uplift the demand for an arms embargo on Israel, and is to demand that our politicians, the Biden administration, and the next administration, whoever that may be, to end all U.S. aid and end its complicity in this genocide. We know that without the financial backing and the diplomatic cover that the U.S. is providing on Israel, we know that this genocide would not have been possible.
At Saturday's rally near the White House, photojournalist Samuel Mina Jr. of Arizona was hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries after he lit his left arm on fire in an act of protest. Ahead of his self-immolation, Mina spoke of his guilt over participating in biased media coverage of Gaza, writing, quote, "How many Palestinians were killed that I allowed to be branded as Hamas? How many men, women, and children were struck?"
What a dumbass. Just can't take it. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-Fauci box. Why? Because we're in the cold season. The Max 35 helps to neutralize pathogens, maintains the mucosal barrier in your mouth and in your throat. D3 helps to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. Ashwagandha root brings down cortisol levels and also helps with your glucose levels, brings down inflammation. Turmeric is an antioxidant and also brings down inflammation. And magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc is really important to boost up your immune system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-Fauci box, because we're in the cold season in America. And you can get an anti-Fauci advanced box, and you get C60 on top of all the other vitamins that I just mentioned. C60 is a very strong antioxidant. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, or avocado oil. This is important to boost up your immune system by bringing down free radicals. You're going to be boosting up your energy levels for your ATP because you're improving the mitochondrial health. So that ATP will be used to help for a robust immune system. And when you're calming down that stress, that reactive oxygen species stress, those free radical stress on the cells, then the tissues are going to be healthier, and they're going to be able to weather some sort of infection better than diseased tissues. So it's important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-Fauci box or the anti-Fauci advanced box. Let's go back to ultra-liberal now.
With a missile co-signed by the American media, the graduate of the Cronkite School of Journalism in Arizona asked. The Dominican Republic says it will immediately begin expelling up to 10,000 undocumented Haitian residents a week, despite warnings from the UN and rights groups about the worsening security and humanitarian situation in Haiti. The Dominican president, Luis Abinader, has made cracking down on Haitian communities and on his country's border with Haiti a central pillar of his presidency. The UN reported last month at least 3,660.
This is important because it relates to America. The Dominican Republic is saying, hey, we have too many Haitians. It's causing a problem. We're going to deport them. They're here illegally. And you have the international community saying, you can't do that. Donald Trump gets into office. Let's just say he wins the election. And he wants to kick out the illegal immigrants. They're here illegally. And the UN's going to say, you can't do that. See, countries have lost their own self-determination. They're pushing an uber government through the UN. But this is democracy now. How is it democracy when you don't have self-determination to protect your borders from illegals? They come over here illegally. Big problem. But here, once again, ultraliberalism destroys countries, destroys families, destroys countries, destroys the economics. Lovely.
People were killed in Haiti in the first half of this year due to gang violence. Just last week, a gang attack in central Haiti killed at least 70 people and displaced some 6,300 Haitians. In Mexico, the new mayor of Chilpancingo, capital of Guerrero state, was murdered Sunday, just days after taking office. Alejandro Arco's death came 3 days after the city's new secretary, Francisco Tapia, was shot dead. At least 6 candidates for public office in Mexico were killed in the lead-up to this year's June elections. Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, who was inaugurated a week ago, has vowed to take on the homicide crisis and organized crime. In the United States, residents of Florida are once again evacuating their homes as Hurricane Milton barrels towards Florida's Gulf Coast, threatening major storm surges and widespread destruction around Tampa Bay and other areas. Milton is projected to make landfall by midweek as a Category 3 storm. This comes as the death toll from Hurricane Helene climbed to 232 people across 6 states. Donald Trump seized on the disaster to push misinformation about the Biden-Harris administration on the campaign trail, lying that federal authorities are denying help to Republicans in the stricken areas and that federal funds are being diverted from recovery efforts to house immigrants. Federal and local officials have taken to the airwaves to refute Trump's, quote, dangerous narrative. This is Tennessee Governor Bill Lee.
There's no confiscation of supplies or of products coming in by FEMA or TEMA. There's nothing but commitment to serving the people in this state. And those who spread that kind of misinformation, it's deeply unfortunate that that's happening.
That's Tennessee's Republican Governor Bill Lee. Meanwhile, The Intercept reports prisoners in North Carolina were left in their cells without running water or power for nearly a week, cut off from communication with the outside world and forced to keep their waste in plastic bags in their cells. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.
This is ultra-liberal news now. This is, I tell you, she is just, just something else, I'll tell you. Just something else. This is radio. Well, this is Times Radio. I mean, I think Times Radio is actually pretty good. I actually, even though I may not agree with some of the talking heads of that episode, but I think I like Times Radio, actually. I like the style of it. Before we play Times Radio, I want to just hear what's going on with this
There are some
issue.
trade-offs, obviously. For a lot of retail investors, it's a secondary consideration that some of these funds. Great discussion about how risky or not are single stock ETFs that give you sort of levered or sometimes inverse returns for a single company like Tesla or Nvidia. And they've become really popular with the retail community, which is why we wanted to write the story and look into this trend, because the companies that are putting out these products, the ETF issuers, are sort of quietly putting them out. At first, it's 1 or 2 funds from any one of these companies. Now suddenly we're seeing filings where they are listing 20, 25 ETFs in one filing. So we're really seeing a great proliferation of them. It's attracting the retail community, people who are really interested in these yields and getting those streams of payouts, and then, you know, using those payouts sometimes to pay off their mortgages, for example, or for their everyday life expenses. So it really is interesting. It's proliferating. And there's a great discussion about how risky or not risky some of these funds can be.
So that kind of brings me to my point, Vildana. This seems too good to be true. Are they too good to be true? Are we seeing some problem funds?
There's so many of them. There's more than 160 new ones so far this year, which is a record. We've really seen the AUM in these funds ballooning to more than $300 billion at this point. But when you look at a lot of them, they might be giving you the payouts, and the payouts are definitely real, but the funds themselves will, for example, underperform the stock or the index. A lot of times they'll underperform by a good chunk the stock or the index that they are tracking. So for example, maybe the Tesla one or the Nvidia one, Tesla might be down for the year, and then one of those funds tracking it will be down even more. So
that's because
there
it's
are some
leveraged.
trade-offs, obviously.
It's
For a
leveraged.
lot of
I mean,
retail
it's, of
investors,
course,
it's a
you're taking a
secondary
risk.
consideration that some of these funds are trailing by that much. What's important to them are those income
Come on, get it
streams,
out.
those
Get it out of your mouth.
payouts.
Work
So
for
it's a
Bloomberg.
really
Fuck.
interesting juxtaposition to think about.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt about that. Thank you so much, Vildana. We appreciate Vildana Heinrich joining us from Bloomberg News. It's today's big take, so you can definitely check it out on bloomberg.com/big take. Definitely check that out. Plus, it's a podcast, so you can check it out on that as well. Hey, guess what? Category 5 is now Hurricane Milton. Did you see this?
I saw that.
National Hurricane Center announcing that Hurricane Milton, which is barreling towards the west coast of Florida, is now a tropical 5? Category 5. Category 5 hurricane storm. We will be, of course, tracking that. There have been potentially the largest evacuation from Tampa in the area in 7 years, so we will keep our eyes on that for you as well. Paul and I are in Orlando. It looks pretty calm here as we head into that, but obviously once the hurricane makes landfall, once it gets there, it will also decrease in speed, but that cone is what they call it. How wide it can be will be quite wide, which means a lot of flooding, a lot of rain, and a lot of wind, and a lot of damage could happen regardless. So what did Matt Palzoa say? Like tens of billions and billions in terms of insured losses, and then we're not even looking at the uninsured losses.
Right, and as he questioned the expectations by the time it hits landfall due to some local weather conditions that might be a little bit weaker than the Category 5. That's kind of the hope. But you're right, the cone of possible landfall is pretty wide at this point. So I think that from what we hear in Orlando, the folks down here, they've been through this before. They know what to do. They just unfortunately had to deal with a really bad one to the north here that went up to the Carolinas. So they are used to this stuff, but they are prepared and working.
We will be here, and we'll be here tomorrow as well, broadcasting from the Commonwealth's National Conference for Financial Advisors. It's the future is now. We will be back.
All right, before we go to Times Radio, the last anti-Fauci box that I have is the anti-Fauci deluxe box. So you get everything in the advanced box, but you get 3 other supplements. So in the box for the deluxe, the anti-Fauci deluxe box, and it's something that you should get because we're going through the cold season. Max 35, you get the D3, you get magnesium and zinc, you get C60, your choice of avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, or MCT coconut oil. Turmeric, ashwagandha, lignans, which helps with the immune system. It's an antioxidant and it helps to bring down inflammation. It also helps with hormonal health for males and females. This is very important for your immune system. It's a powder. You mix it with your food. You should be taking this every day. Digestive enzymes helps to break down carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, so it's easier for digestion and easier on your pancreas. As you get older, you need to supplement because our pancreases start to age, all right? So you want to lessen the load on the pancreas. So you can help with your pancreatic health, but also to help break down carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, so you get better absorption. In addition, this has enzymes that will break up glycoproteins. That's important. We know all about glycoproteins, spikes and everything, right? So it's important to break up those glycoproteins. So there are proteolytic enzymes that are in here. In addition, bromelain is fibrinolytic. Bromelain is an enzyme that'll break up clots. So you should be taking this, and that's why it's in the anti-Fauci deluxe box. Omega-3 helps with your lipid profile. It'll bring down LDL levels, raise your HDL levels, and it'll also help to prevent your red blood cells from sticking. That means that omega-3 is synergistic with the digestive enzymes to help prevent clots or to help mitigate clots. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the anti-Fauci beginners box, the advanced box, or the deluxe box. Go to the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. All right, let's play Times Radio here.
In them, this extraordinary assassination of the Hamas leader in an Iranian government guest house. What else have they up their sleeve? What else are they going to unleash?
Now, as you've been hearing, we're focusing very much today on events in the Middle East. The region continues or seems sometimes to be on the brink of perpetual conflict, with diplomatic efforts continuing to lead to yield little in the way of answers.
Because diplomatic efforts
from a former speaker of the Israeli Parliament.
Diplomatic efforts always fail because they don't get the job done. It's really simple. These pseudo-intellectuals. You know, it's really simple when it comes to the markets and international affairs by Dr. Paul Cottrell. With international affairs in the Middle East, get the job done so you don't have as much destruction, waste of life, and perturbation of the financial markets. All right, just get the job done, and things will be better. Stop whining. Just get the job done. It's really simple. The same thing with these portfolio managers. They overcomplicate things. You know, don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Stupid. A lot of people are just stupid. Wait, what's going on here? I want to hear about the hurricane. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth. This
the heels
Category
of the
5
wind.
hurricane.
Be talking about this much more as we get closer to Wednesday. As we start the week here on this 7th of October, of course, the conversation is about Israel, the security of Israelis, and a widening conflict, an escalating conflict on multiple fronts throughout the Middle East, something that the U.S. seems to have less influence over now than maybe at any point in the last year. Just wrapped up an event at the White House, the President, First Lady, lighting the yahrzeit candle, joined by a rabbi in the Blue Room. Incidentally, the president getting a hurricane briefing now on the heels of that event. But Kamala Harris and the second gentleman also marking the day here, delivering remarks and planting a memorial tree, a pomegranate tree, which is a traditional move here at the vice president's residence. That'll be up at the Naval Observatory around 4 o'clock. So on the late edition of Balance of Power, we'll be hearing some remarks likely from Kamala Harris. Donald Trump is in New York commemorating this on his own here. He'll be holding a remembrance event at Trump National Doral in Miami at the end of the day. That'll be about 6 p.m. Eastern time, as we follow the movements of the candidates, of course. But we have news coming out of Israel right now. Hamas firing rockets at Israel amid clashes after a year of war. We spent so much time talking
so
about
Hamas is firing out of Gaza.
Have been hitting Beirut for days now, and we want to get the latest on what's actually happening with the help of Rosalind Matheson, Bloomberg News Director for Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Rosalind, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us here and for staying up late. I know this is a very busy time for all of the areas in which you cover. But the fact of the matter is, you can tell us now, a widening conflict is how we describe this 1 year later. What's happening on the ground in Israel today?
Well, that's right. So it is, in fact, a widening conflict. And the events today are really a reminder of that, because in a way, the attention had shifted a bit towards Lebanon and the ground, incursion that's going on there from Israel, the fighting that's happening against Hezbollah. But Israel is really fighting on those multiple fronts. And what we've seen today, the 1 year mark of the Hamas attack on Israel a year ago, is that, Hamas is still a fighting force despite a year of war. It's lobbed a bunch of rockets over into Israel today, including some that were targeted at Tel Aviv. Most of those have been shot down, but a few did get through. We've also seen Israel, turn its focus back a bit to Gaza in recent days. So we've seen Israeli troops moving back into the north of Gaza. Those were areas that was ostensibly, cleaned out of a large part of Hamas some time ago. We're also seeing, of course, action in the center of Gaza. So really a signal, from that is that Israel's very bogged down in a way in both these fronts, and really, the concern is about the security of its borders in all those directions.
It is pretty remarkable to have sirens sounding across central Israel on this day of days. Rosalind, the IDF says it intercepted most of the projectiles fired from the Palestinian territory, but you're right, this is still a two-front situation, and I wonder what's going to happen next when it comes to Iran. This is still an Israel that is crouched and prepared to respond.
Well, that's right, and we're still waiting for a response from Israel. It's obviously something that's being carefully considered. You need to send a proportional response at the least to Iran, because the latest volley that came from Iran was ballistic missiles only. So they came a lot faster. They came with a lot less warning than previously, and some of them got through. And so Israel can't just respond in the way that it did back in April when we had that tit-for-tat between Iran and Israel. They've got to consider something that sends a message. And it looks like, of course, there are three options here. One is to hit the nuclear sites, which the US has very much warned against, and Israel ugly can't do on its own militarily. You've got the oil sites in Iran, which is obviously spooking the oil market, because again, then you're getting into issues around global supply and the economy. Or do you go again for military targets across Iran, but in a much more fulsome way than you did back in April? These are all the calculations in this chessboard that we're in about how do you do this to send messages to each other without tipping it into a full-blown direct conflict between Iran and Israel. So we're waiting to see, what Israel does there. And then, of course, does that in turn bring another, reaction from Iran itself?
Yeah. We're glad you could join us live from London. Rosalind Matheson with us here on Balance of Power, Bloomberg News Director for Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Quite an area of responsibility at this time in our history. I'm Joe Matthew in Washington. As we hear some new remarks from Kamala Harris on the situation in Israel. She sat down for an interview with 60 Minutes. This is not something that you would have seen last night. It's actually part of their election special that will air later today. This is the special we talked about that Donald Trump chose to not take part in. And they did speak about the situation in Israel. The vice president was asked about the veracity of our alliance between Washington and Benjamin Netanyahu. Here's how she answered.
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between...
I'll tell you, there's something
the
really
American
weird. There's something weird about her earrings. Now, these earrings look, these earrings, I'm not so sure that it doesn't have some sort of communication through that. It's like an earbud, almost. Yeah, those earrings don't look right. No, I don't design earrings, but the design, I don't even like the design of them, but they look techie. They look like, if you remember Star Trek, right? And what was her name? What's her name? She was the black actor, right? But she was the communications one. She was listening to the frequencies, on the Star Trek. All right, this is the original Star Trek, and she had this little piece in her ear that kind of stuck out, right? It kind of looks like that. All right. You look at those earrings and you zoom in, it looks like Harura or something like that, I think her name is. It kind of is like this. I would not be surprised that that is a communication device in her ear or on her ear through that earlobe. Something's not right about her. I don't trust her for a second. And not only that, she's just a dumb box of rocks.
And the Israeli people. And the answer to that question is yes.
Kamala Harris out with a statement on this October 7th, much like Joe Biden. Each separate statements, Vice President Harris calling the Hamas attack a year ago today pure evil, reiterating her commitment to the security of Israel as unwavering. That's a quote. Also saying she is heartbroken over the scale of death and destruction in Gaza. It's where we pick up our conversation with Brad Schneider. Congressman.
The way she answered that, she's not going to win Dearborn. She's not going to win Hamtramck. She's not going to win Michigan. And that's good for Trump.
Obviously something that is not becoming more quiet, it's escalating. And I wonder if you see any chance that this will be resolved by the election on November 5th.
Are you an idiot?
Well, thank you for having me, and it is a very auspicious day. It was exactly 1 year ago where Hamas launched thousands of terrorists, thousands of rockets, killing 1,200, taking 250 hostage, and leading to the conflict we've seen over the past year. It's hard to imagine that a resolution is on the near horizon. As was mentioned, I don't think I'd call it a widening conflict in the region. Hezbollah started firing rockets at Israel on October 8th. The Houthis from Yemen, Iran has launched 2 strikes in April and on October 1st. It's certainly escalating, and it's hard to imagine that it'll be resolved within the next 4 weeks. But the United States, as you just had Vice President Harris said very clearly, the United States stands united with Israel, the people of Israel, in their fight, existential battle against the Iran and its proxies, and we need to make sure that Israel defeats Hamas, defeats Hezbollah, and that ultimately we can get on to that road for peace, where all the people in the region can give their children the future they deserve.
Well, with all of that said, here you're attending and speaking at an event in Highland Park today.
Okay, I'm going to jump to Times Radio.
First, Richard Dearlove joins us. He was head of the British Secret Intelligence Service, what we know as MI6, from 1999 to 2004. And Sir Richard Dearlove joins us now. Hello to you.
Hello, Adam. How are you?
I'm well. I hope you are. Thank you very much indeed for finding the time. What do you make of what's happening in the Middle East? You obviously, in intelligence, dealt with elsewhere in the Middle East with the situation, the threats from Iraq. Is it, as we were saying, just inevitable that these sort of conflicts are going to continue in the Middle East?
There's a pattern.
Big Pharma hates when you do this, but they can't do a damn thing about it. These shoes help relieve back pain and knee pain, making you feel like you're walking on clouds.
There's a pattern about conflict in the Middle East, and we've had a series of conflicts, compromise, build up to another conflict. I guess the question now is, are we on the threshold of something different, or is this just a repetition of the pattern whereby maybe this conflict ends in some...
It's obvious different. Obviously, it's different.
Sort of partial agreement, partial ceasefire that solves no problems, and then we look ahead and we build up to another major military exchange. However, I'm probably of the view at the moment that something fundamental is changing, and that Israel have, against people's expectations, challenged Iran's policy of fighting and destabilizing the Middle East through its proxies.
So in that sense, you would see this as positive in the long run, a positive development in as much as Israel is standing up to Iran's aggressive troublemaking.
Yeah, I guess in my advancing years, I'm taking a more black and white view. And I think that, yeah, we are at a point where Israel has realized it's got the capability to call Iran's bluff. And Iran's policy, which has been very effective hitherto, is looking as though it's about to break apart and fail.
We were just hearing from the Lebanese ambassador to the UK. He was suggesting that the Arab world is united on this issue and basically united in condemning and opposing actively Israel's actions. Is that your reading of the situation?
No, I'm sorry, that's complete rubbish. Okay, I'm going to be absolutely blunt. Probably the worst job in the world at the moment is to be the ambassador for Lebanon, which is a government without power, without consequence, and without significance. He's an impressive diplomat, but what a dreadful job he's got. Look, the truth of the matter is that the Egyptians, the Saudis, the Jordanians can't say publicly what they really feel because of the volatility of the Arab Spring. But they will be cheering Israel on from the sidelines, hoping that at long last, the Arab world, the Sunni Arab world, not the Shia Arab world, is coming to terms with the massive destabilization that has been caused by Iran over the last 15, 20 years.
But can they cheer from the sidelines, as you say, when we've now got an Israeli prime minister and a government that doesn't pay lip service to the idea of a two-state solution, a sovereign Palestinian state, which is very much what Washington, what London, what European leaders are all advocating?
Well, I think there are two issues here. And for the Sunni Arab world, the first issue is more important, which is the conflict between Sunni and Shia Islam. And they are looking at a resolution to that problem before they look at a resolution to the Palestinian problem. And it's quite clear that there was momentum within that contest through the Abraham Accords to a solution to the Palestinian problem, probably not acceptable to the Palestinians, I agree. And the Palestinians are the victims in this, but an accord which was certainly of strong interest and support to a large chunk of the Sunni world. And the Sunni world vastly outnumbers the Shia world. Okay.
Should we say that the Palestinians are largely Sunni?
The Palestinians are split, but they are largely Sunni, yes. I mean, it's quite complicated, and I'm not an expert, but I think on the, I'm not an expert on the Arab world, but the fundamentals here are that a lot of the Arab world has, as it were, pushed the Palestinian problem to one side. And they're looking through the optic of a much larger contest between basically an Arab alliance which is led by Saudi Arabia and its supporting countries, and Iran on the other side of this equation.
It sounds as if you expect that there's going to be, direct military confrontation with Iran, possibly
If you listen to what he said, all right, it's the same thing I've been saying for a year. Ishmael's soul root is going to align with Jacob, and Esau is going to fracture. And there's going to be a positive Esau and a negative Esau. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a great alignment between positive Esau, Jacob, and Ishmael to kill the negative Esau. Now, that's the Kabbalistic thing of what's going on with Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran. Negative Esau is Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Ishmael is Saudi Arabia. Positive Esau is basically the rest of the world. I'm broad brushing this. I can go into more detail, and there's nuance to the details, but broad brush, all right? And there's a great alignment. There's a great alignment happening here, which was predicted in Zohar, which was predicted in Kabbalistic texts that are about 2,000 years old. It's all happening. The Kabbalists have been predicting this.
Attacking strategic, strategic installations in Iran.
But the only country that can restrain Israel is the United States. We are within 6 weeks now of an American presidential election. The sort of cognoscenti, the political elite in Washington, have their mind totally preoccupied with something else. We've seen the failure of Blinken's.
Now, this is what I mean by the negative and positive Esau in other countries. There's a negative and positive Esau in the United States. There's also a Jacob soul. So nations have a composition of Jacob and Esau, and each nation is different. Sometimes it's all Esau, sometimes it's all Jacob, sometimes it's a mixture. In the United States, it's mostly Jacob, but there is an Esau component. In that Esau component, it's going to split. Now, if the United States tries to curtail Israel, what's going to happen is that the split of Esau negative and Esau positive, the split will be more with Esau negative, and there will be a curse on the United States. There will be a curse on the United States. Now, do you think it's by accident that you're seeing a lot of natural destruction in the United States? Now, some people think it's HARP and all this stuff. You know what I really think it is? It's the hand of God, because of being passive, being a pacifist, and not being forceful and trying to get the job done in the Middle East. That's what I think is happening. It's not HARP, but other people can disagree. I don't really care. I'm at a point in my life, I don't fucking care. So, you can think it's HARP, you can think it's not, I don't fucking care. But I do think that there is a curse that is coming on the United States because it's not doing the right thing. The right thing is to get the job done. The United States has failed in getting the job done in the Middle East for decades, for more than 50 years.
Ceasefire moves. Israel, in my view, is going to respond in a way which punishes Iran heavily, and damn the consequences. That's going to be their attitude at this point in time. What are they going to do? I think they're going to try to destabilize the regime in Iran, which already has massive internal problems that we have seen on the Iranian street over a long period of time. And I think that they will attack, obviously, their missile capabilities, probably try to take down some of their nuclear capability as well. And what else might they do? I mean, we've seen them, this extraordinary assassination of the Hamas leader in an Iranian government guest house. What else have they up their sleeve? What else are they going to unleash? And we know within Iran there is massive dissatisfaction with the theocracy, with the theocrat.
The Israelis are trying to assassinate the Ayatollah. And that would be a good thing.
Leadership.
So, Richard, can I ask you, before we let you go, there is obviously, Donald Trump gave another rally last night. He returned to the scene where he was shot at not so long ago. There are lots of people who say that if Donald Trump were to win the American presidential election in November, that could really change what is going on in the Middle East. Some say in a good way, some say in a bad way. What's your view on that?
I just don't think we know the answer because of Trump's unpredictability. I think probably in terms of global security, it's in our interest that Kamala wins this election. If Trump comes in, it's uncertain. We don't understand at the moment who his new national
And
security.
you put an empty suit like Kamala in the office, in the Oval Office, then the national security state will run amok. And they want status quo. Status quo is Iran, stay in your box, but you can go nuclear. And Israel, you can't kill the terrorists. You can only kill enough of them so they can reconstitute, so we can sell you more weapons. That's the status quo of the United States. And that's the fucking reason why the United States is getting cursed. Right there. Get the fucking job done, Pentagon. Shit.
Team is what line they take. I mean, if I had to make a guess, and it's a guess, I would say that he will go strongly in favor of supporting Israel, and there will be no, as it were, push for a compromise with Iran. I mean, there's a lot of people whose views are not expressed
Because
in this
he's
discussion,
not,
we're saying.
because Donald Trump is against the national security state, because the national security state has caused all these problems. The national security state is what prevented Israel from getting the job done for decades. It's time to get the job done. I don't know how many times I have to say that.
This is an opportunity to cut off the head of the snake, and by that we mean Iran. It has been the massively destabilizing force in the Middle East through the Houthis, through Hamas, through Hezbollah, through the Shia militia in Iraq. And, you know, suddenly that's breaking apart, and Iran themselves now face the prospect of a direct confrontation with Israel, probably strongly supported by the United States, even in this sort of change period when Washington is deeply distracted.
So, Richard, can we ask your view of the agreement concerning the Chagos Islands? We know that successive governments have been negotiating on this matter. What do you make of the settlement?
Well, it looks on paper okay, and it seems to secure the future of the Diego Garcia base, which is important. But I think my question is, why on earth give up the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands at this point in time, when the biggest question facing us in terms of national security and foreign policy is the future of the West's relationship with China? And that base is of massive strategic importance when one looks at the issue of how the international community in the future will deal with an aggressive China. And we have seen what China has done in the South China Sea on building bases on islands and sort of trying to extend its area of sovereignty through the 9-dash line. But why make this move when there's no pressure or need to do so? We could have held it in abeyance for 5-10 years until we understand better what the West's future relationship with China is going to be.
So, Richard Dearlove, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Probably because someone in the UK is bought and paid for by the CCP. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. Olive leaf extract is a supplement that I have in my store that is a dual purpose supplement. It'll improve your immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. How? It'll help to bring down LDL, raise your HDL levels, and therefore less chance of building up plaque. It also brings down inflammation. And by bringing down inflammation, you're reducing the chances of building up plaque and you're improving your immune system. So please, if you want to improve your immune system and improve your cardiovascular health, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the olive leaf extract. It's a great way. It's a dual purpose supplement. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Like I said earlier in the video, taking a probiotic is really important for your gut health, to be able to absorb nutrients, to be able to have better metabolism, to reduce inflammation in the gut, to improve mental acuity and mood. This is a powdered version of a probiotic that I take. I was eating hummus just a few minutes ago and I had this in the hummus. So there's a little scooper, you mix it with your food. It's really easy. That's how I take it. You can also take the VeggieCap version that I have on my store. There's a probiotic. Both of them are great probiotics. But please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this probiotic. Take it every day. Mix it with food or with water. And when you do that, you're resetting your gut and you're going to have better metabolism. Now, there are a lot of people that aren't sleeping well. It's really important to sleep well, to slow down the aging process, to let the body detoxify, and you can consolidate memory when you have good sleep, when you have 3 cycles of REM sleep and that deep sleep. That's really important. Chronic sleep deprivation can lead to early onset of dementia and a speed of aging. So please get a good night's sleep regularly. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Good Night Formula. This has tryptophan and melatonin in it. So take this every day and, before you go to bed, and you'll get into deep sleep and at 3 cycles of REM sleep. You're going to be well rested. You're going to have more mental clarity. You're going to have consolidation of memory, and you're detoxifying your body. Really important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Good Night Formula. All right, what's going on, Bloomberg?
Especially for Harris. So I was surprised she didn't select Shapiro because Shapiro was particularly strong in the Philadelphia media market, and he also won in many counties where Joe Biden did not. And Tim Walz, who's a friend, I served him, he's a good man. He basically, if you look at the map of Minnesota, Walz and Biden won in the same places. So Shapiro, I thought, brought more value. And in the state that she must win and where she is, frankly, not performing as she needs, as well as she needs to. So I thought
she didn't pick Shapiro. You know why she didn't pick Shapiro? Because she needed the Muslim vote. And she couldn't have a Jew on the ticket. But she'll tell you that she's for Israel. Yeah, she's just another fucking empty suit politician. And you know what? We need some no nonsense Americans to call it off the way it is, like myself. All right. We need more of DrPaulCottrells around, basically saying, you know what, this clown on Bloomberg, he's an idiot. And you know what, that MI6 guy saying that Harris was going to be more of a stabilizing, actor in the region. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? She's nothing but an empty suit. She can't think. She's literally retarded. Don't be Kamala Harris. Make sure you detoxify your body. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get Zeolite. Zeolite is a negatively charged molecule. It'll attach to positively charged heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. When it does attach, what happens is that it'll allow your kidneys to excrete it in 6 to 8 hours. What that does is that you're slowly detoxifying your body from those toxins. All right. So you should be taking this every day. You can take this year round, every day year round. Just take a couple drops of it year round, drink it with filtered water, and you're detoxifying your body year round. You also need to stop ingesting these toxins. All right. Make sure you filter your water. That's where forever chemicals and these toxins are coming from. So filter your water. I use a 5 filtration system called Zero Water. I've been doing that for decades now, 2 decades. All right. And make sure that you stay away from processed foods. All right. And try to eat organic if you can. And try to stay away from foods that may be heavily pesticide, have a lot of chemical fertilizers and pesticides on them. Try to stay away from that. The more natural the food, the better, right? Now, once you fix the filter water problem and you stop eating processed foods and you improve your diet, then what you want to do is you want to work out a little bit, because toxins do build up in adipose tissue. So if you're getting fat, you're accumulating toxin. So you need to get rid of the fat to get rid of the toxins. So have some sort of resistance training, and some cardiovascular training. Lose some weight, get leaner, and detoxify your body that way too. And then taking zeolite and doing cleanses and stuff like that will help to detoxify your body. But with zeolite, you can take every day, just a couple drops underneath your tongue, and take it with filtered water. If you want to just detox once or twice a year, what you should do is take 4 drops or so. You could take a little bit more. You take 4 drops or so and swallow with water, filtered water, and just use up the bottle, and then do that once or twice a year. It's up to you, but this type of zeolite you can take year round. All right. Now, in addition, if you are taking medication, let's say you're diabetic and you're taking medication, or you have heart disease and you're taking heart medication, or whatever, right? If you're taking medication, talk to your doctor before you take zeolite, because what will happen is that it's possible that the zeolite might attach to your medication and lower the concentration of your medication. So your doctor might have to up the dosage while you're detoxifying your body. All right. So you have the proper dosage of your medication in your body while you're detoxifying. So talk to your doctor before you detoxify if you're on medication. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the zeolite and detoxify your body. You need it because we have forever chemicals in our foods, in our water. There's chemtrails, stuff that we breathe has toxins in it. You need to filter that stuff out. You need to detoxify your body. And then what you'll notice is that your immune system is more robust, and your endocrine system is improved. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. And don't be a stupid Kamala Harris. It's obvious she has an endocrine problem. All right, let's go to Al Jazeera.
Take summer with you all year long. Travel with a rail pass and fall in love with off-season Europe.
I was originally diagnosed with breast cancer, then a large brain tumor. After another whole year, the cancer infiltrated my
sentiment and prop up the property market.
The cut releases 2 signals. The first is to boost residents' consumption, and the second is to stabilize the declining real estate market. It effectively reassures families with existing house loans, which is beneficial for helping the real estate market stabilize quickly and avoid impacting residents' consumption.
It's almost like
The major
China
cities
is
in
having a
Shanghai,
weaving moment.
Guangzhou, and Shenzhen have eased their home buying restrictions, but concerns remain over high levels of debt among households and businesses, which could limit the effectiveness of the measures. Ahead of the National Day holiday, authorities stepped up efforts to encourage consumer spending, from exhibitions displaying clean energy vehicles to promotions for furniture and smart homeware.
Here we go.
Get these hostage free, but let this drag on for another year.
We'll be talking about it in the France 24 debate. Many thanks, Philip. Charles, earlier you heard our correspondent in Beirut talking about the 1.2 million displaced there by fighting with Israel. There's 100,000 Palestinians who are refugees in neighboring Egypt who've fled from the Gaza Strip in the past year. It's a France 24 report from Cairo.
Khaled and his father have been living in this apartment for nearly 10 months. They are among those who escaped the conflict in Gaza. While going through old pictures on his phone, Khaled reflects on the 60 friends and relatives who lost their lives to Israeli bombings.
They aren't just numbers, they're people with families, dreams, and hopes for a better future. The Israeli war machine has shattered those dreams.
Khaled knows this Abdi neighborhood in downtown Cairo well, having spent 5 years here as a student. He returned to Gaza to work a little over a year ago, but now, back in Egypt, he sees no future ahead.
I don't feel like a stranger here. Egyptians are kind and generous. But my main problem is that we have no rights in Egypt. Without residency permits, I lack the freedom I long for.
Without proper documentation, Palestinians who fled cannot work, travel, or receive refugee status. An organization founded in 2000 during the Second Intifada is working tirelessly to support them daily.
The needs of the Palestinians have changed. They require income, and we must do our part to help them find work.
As the prospect of a ceasefire gets thinner, the Palestinians who have escaped to Egypt cannot help but think of the 2 million compatriots still trapped in Gaza, living under constant threat.
Well, it's time now for business, and we say hello to Kate Moody.
Hi, Francois.
On this 1 year anniversary, you've been taking a look at the toll it's taking on the economies of both Israel and the Palestinian territory.
Yeah, absolutely, Francois. Of course, the human death toll, the fate of the hostages, the human suffering on all sides remains the most significant part of this ongoing story. But those attacks of October 7th and the subsequent spiraling conflict have also been devastating for businesses and economies on all sides. We'll start with a look at Israel, which saw economic activity plunge by 21% at the end of last year. It did rebound a bit in the first quarter of this year, but has stagnated since. A year ago, the IMF was predicting the Israeli economy would grow nearly 3.5% this year. It's now forecasting growth of just 1.6%. All sectors of the economy have been impacted. The tourism industry, perhaps the most tangible. The number of visitors to Israel has plummeted from over 2 million in the first half of 2023 to just a quarter of that level in the first 6 months of this year. There is an ongoing labor shortage that's largely linked to the number of Israelis who've been called up to serve in the military. And one business analyst estimates that some 60,000 Israeli companies will shut this year. Government borrowing has soared. Israel's credit rating has been downgraded several times, meaning that any future borrowing will cost even more. And as this war widens, economists are unanimous that the economic risks for Israel will only deepen. Well, a year of war has also devastated the Gaza Strip. Its health system, sanitation, power grid, and much of its housing all destroyed by Israeli airstrikes or ground troops. The Palestinian economy has also been decimated. Brian Quinn has the details.
Infrastructure in ruins with an economy to match. Israel's invasion and bombing campaign in the wake of the October 7th Hamas attacks have essentially destroyed most economic activity in Gaza. According to the UN's Trade and Development Agency, the Gaza economy plunged by 81% in the immediate wake of the invasion. By the middle of 2024, it was at 1/6 of its 2022 level. Nearly 100% of Gaza's population is now officially in poverty. Most households have no source of income, while the price of basic goods has soared by 250%. Nearly all commerce takes place on the black market at exorbitant prices. Prior to 2020, agriculture accounted for 13% of Gaza's formal jobs, but provided informal work to some 90% of its population. Israel has made a point of targeting Gaza's farmland. By early 2024, 80 to 96% of the territory's agricultural assets had been destroyed or damaged, including irrigation systems, livestock farms, orchards, farm machinery, and storage facilities. Food production crippled, sending nearly 2 million people to the brink of famine in what Human Rights Watch identifies as a war crime. Meanwhile, Gaza's private sector businesses too have been decimated. Already by January, 2/3 of pre-war jobs had been lost, with 82% of small businesses destroyed. If and when the war finally ends, Gaza will likely need decades to recover.
Well, at the end of January, the World Bank estimated the cost of destroyed infrastructure in Gaza at $18.5 billion. It's a price tag that hasn't been updated since then. UN officials say there can be no move towards reconstruction until a permanent ceasefire is in place. And even then, the process will take decades.
It's a mathematical equation of time and money, as it usually is. But to rebuild a society and an economy and a culture, that takes a little bit longer, as we all know. And the rebuilding is not just the physical aspects of schools, hospitals, universities, and homes, but it's to rebuild and to plan for and to repair the damage that's going to be done to children that may be out of school for almost 2 years, to families that have been completely decimated.
Talking about
people have said about it. It doesn't seem that it satisfies anyone. I'm a bit surprised that that's how they let her go out with this. On the other hand, what else would she be able to say? Because this issue is a real problem for Kamala Harris in the same way it was for Joe Biden. And quite frankly, the same way it has been for incumbent presidents going back almost to the founding of Israel, but at least back 30 or 40 years. It's a really challenging issue. It's a no-win situation for her. And let's not forget, we're talking October 7th, but the situation has gotten worse for the Democrats in the last 2 weeks, because now it involves Lebanon directly. And of course, the Lebanese American population in the swing state of Michigan is the largest in America. And so it has been compounded. It has not gotten any better while she's been on the campaign trail in the last, 2 months.
Yeah. The vice president's words are being scrutinized, Rick, as you would expect, as people try to find any difference between her approach and Joe Biden's. How's she doing?
I think she's not letting too much daylight in between her approach and Joe Biden, which I'm a little surprised by, because I would have thought this would be one of the areas that she would have tried to draw a contrast for all the reasons that Jeannie was just talking about, because there are constituencies at play. There are, major groups like the Arab Americans in Michigan that we talk about quite a bit, who have not been happy with the Joe Biden administration on not just even their actions toward Israel, but their lack of outreach toward the community. So I would have thought this would have been sort of an important moment for her, not today particularly, but since she has been the candidate of the Democratic Party, to say, well, I might approach it differently in the future, and maybe put some principles together on how she feels, the conduct of this war should take place. Which is not substantially different than what Joe Biden's been doing. But if she created some distance, I think it walks her a long way to getting those voters in Michigan to coalesce around her.
I think
which
she's going to lose Michigan.
Simply haven't done the numbers that they gave to Biden in 2020.
Jeannie, what are voters supposed to think about the differences? Let's stop with Joe Biden for a moment, between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. What would these two administrations bring differently in their approach to helping to solve this?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question, because I think that's the problem for many of those who voted, say, uncommitted in the Democratic primary, for Arab Americans, quite frankly, for many young Americans looking at this situation on the Democratic side. They don't see daylight between Biden and now Harris and Trump. And in fact, when I've heard from voters, what they have said is that while Kamala Harris's rhetoric and her remembrance of and her concern for rhetorically the Palestinians in Gaza, and now people living in Lebanon who have been in large numbers impacted by this war. The rhetoric is a lot better, they claim, than Joe Biden's rhetoric was, and certainly Donald Trump's. They aren't hearing any specific policy differences when it comes to weapons, when it comes to alliances. The 60-minute clip has been described as sidestepping the issue on Benjamin Netanyahu. And let's not forget, Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the least popular leaders around the world for Democrats. And so they want to hear that she has this different approach that Rick was just talking about. And they haven't heard that yet Hence, they decided after the debate, we're not going to endorse her. Good news for Kamala Harris, if there is a silver lining, they're not endorsing either Trump or Stein. But that's a problem in a state like Michigan, which is going to be won by a few thousand votes. I mean, 10,000 is the problem for Hillary Clinton. And you look at the numbers they voted uncommitted in Wisconsin and Michigan in the primary, and that bests that many times over. So it is a problem for Democrats. And I would also just add, really interesting polling out of New York on Donald Trump. For everything people have said, he has said about that it sounds anti-Semitic, he is enjoying larger numbers of support amongst Jewish New Yorkers than many Republicans in the past. And so, there is a real challenge here for Democrats.
Jeannie made reference to what Kamala Harris said about Benjamin Netanyahu, asked about our relationship with Netanyahu during this 60 Minutes interview. It's one of the other snippets that we got as a preview here. Rick, let's actually listen to her words. Here's Kamala Harris.
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
Rick Davis, how do you read into that answer, and what would it mean for our relationship with Netanyahu if she's elected?
I think that our relationship with Netanyahu is going to be needing a new definition no matter who's elected. Obviously, Donald Trump will put a filter through it that is different than what Kamala Harris will do. But I think the Biden relationship is so damaged it may be beyond repair. And we have to remember, too, that Bibi Netanyahu is damaged within his own population, may be beyond repair. So it may be that the opening that the next president has, regardless of who it is going to be with a new prime minister, because the sustainability post-war of Bibi Netanyahu's political career is, highly suspect. So I think it's not a linear decision on like who's going to get along with Bibi. The question is, can Bibi survive a political challenge? And if so, what does that mean for his relationship with the United States? And I think that it is a very defining thing for the entire Middle East, because there have been lots of efforts by us in the United States to create a bridge to Israel and the rest of the Gulf states. And it's been put on pause during this, military effort. And I think that until we see the end of that, none of that's going to take root again. So I think this is one of the big questions that's going to be answered only after war fighting and only after the Israeli people decide who they want as a leader in a post-Bibi Netanyahu administration.
Really smart conversation with our signature panel, Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano. That clip, or the couple of clips we've been playing from 60 Minutes, special airs tonight, just the beginning here of what's going to be a massive media blitz by Kamala Harris over the next 48 hours. Jeannie, that was recorded over the weekend, as was an interview with Call Her Daddy, the podcast that's actually making some waves. We'll have some snippets of that in our next hour, talking about reproductive rights and the idea of Donald Trump as a protector of women. But then tomorrow she's on to New York. She's going to do The View. She's going to do...
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get NAD+. This increases your energy levels. It also helps to repair your DNA damage, and it helps with neuroprotection. It helps to protect your neurons and to allow for healthier neurons to develop. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAD+. I've been adding this to my daily routine for anti-aging because of the neuroprotection, the increase in energy, and the DNA repair. As we get older, we have lots of DNA damage, and it's harder to repair that. We have repair mechanisms, but as we get older, it's harder to repair, and eventually we get sick, and we get diseases, and we age faster. So NAD+ is important to add to your protocol. In addition, I also have vitamin K2, MK7. This is a dual purpose product where it'll help with your bone health, your joints, your ligaments, your tendons, but also your cardiovascular health. If you you've been following my protocols, then you'll be able to mitigate osteoarthritis and you'll be able to mitigate plaque buildup in your arteries. Ubiquinol. I've been taking ubiquinol for many years. Ubiquinol is the active form for CoQ10. So you should be taking ubiquinol every day. It's synergistic with many of the other products that I have, such as C60 and also NAD+. But ubiquinol you take because it's an antioxidant, it helps with energy, and it also helps for neural health. And this is part of the reason why it's synergistic with the NAD+. As we get older, it's really important to soak up those free radicals and to protect our neurons. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get ubiquinol to help with neural health.
Stories impacting the conversation today. It's all coming up next. In our second hour of Balance and Power, stay with us here on Bloomberg Radio as we welcome our global television audience to the conversation. Kaylee Lyons will be jumping in as well, live from Washington State.
Please go to my store and get the NAC. NAC increases your glutathione levels. By increasing your glutathione levels, you're going to be able to soak up free radicals in a different pathway, synergistic with C60. So you can soak up more free radicals because it's through a different pathway. In addition, you can detoxify your liver and your kidney with NAC. And NAC helps with anxiety and it calms the mood. So you're a little bit more in a parasympathetic state instead of a sympathetic state. So take NAC, get those glutathione levels raised so you can soak up those free radicals, detoxify your liver and your kidney. And lastly, as we get older, it's harder to build muscle and to maintain muscle mass. Take Myotrol. Myotrol will help build muscle, maintain your muscle, and improve your mitochondrial health. It's synergistic with C60. By improving that mitochondrial health, you have a lot of ATP, and you need lots of ATP to maintain muscle and to build muscle. So, once you start atrophying, it's hard to gain it back, and you go downhill, right? So it's really important to do some resistance training, do some cardiovascular training, proper diet, exercise, proper supplementation, proper sleep, mindfulness, challenge your brain, build some muscle, and that whole protocol will slow down the aging process and you'll have more vitality. You'll have more energy. You'll be able to do things. You won't be so constricted as you get older. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. It's really important. If you're into muscle building or just into fitness or you're into sports, taking Myotrol to help maintain and build muscle is important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take Myotrol every day. All right, that is the transmission for today. Thank you for listening. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Please follow me on the 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please help support my work by donating on my website, or you can donate through Buy Me a Coffee or be a paid member on Patreon. And higher tier members of Patreon will also have a certain level of access to my lectures on pulmonology and immunology. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.